Welcome to the Joint City Council Youth Council Workshop. Today is March 5th, 2024. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the invocation, Pledge of Allegiance by Youth Council Member Garcia.
Today we pray for our school resource officers as they work tirelessly to keep our schools safe from danger and keep them as productive learning environments. We pray for our servicemen and women who have acted upon their calling to serve and protect our great nation so that we may have peace within our borders and enjoy the simple pleasures of day-to-day life. And finally, we thank God for our beautiful city and its wonderful citizens. May we continue to grow not only as a city, but as a community. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, could you please call the roll for City Council and Youth Council members as well?
Yes, Your Honor. Before I call the roll, I would like to announce that Councilmember Welsh has asked to be excused, and I will mark him so. And for the Youth Council, members Arvello, Bella, and Lebed have asked to be excused, and I will mark them so. Mayor Gunter,
Here.
Council members Carr,
Here.
Costin,
Here.
Hayden,
Here.
Long, Shepherd,
Here.
Steinke,
Here.
7 present, 1 excused. Members Anchetta,
Here.
Dupreon,
Here.
Eichthaler,
Here.
G. Garcia, S. Garcia,
Here.
Little, Mazurkowitz,
Here.
Muncy,
Here.
Negron, Roman,
Here.
Widdish,
Here.
8 present, 3 excused, 3 absent.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 is recognitions and achievement. Tonight we have a presentation from Florida League of Cities, the Youth Council video competition. I'd like to welcome Aaron Russell from the Florida League of Cities, who will be presenting the trophy today, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. And good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the Youth Council, staff, and citizens. My name is Aaron Russell. I'm the Membership Program Specialist from the Florida League of Cities, which is located in Tallahassee, Florida. And just for the benefit of the audience members who may be unfamiliar with the League, we have served as the united voice for Florida's 411 cities, towns, and villages since 1922. And our goal is to meet the needs of cities by providing our elected officials with advocacy, events, education, resources, and other services. And so I do want to take a moment to say thank you to the city for being an active and dedicated member of the Florida League of Cities, and a special thank you to Mayor Gunter for serving on the League's board of directors. But it's my honor to be here this afternoon, and that is to recognize the Cape Coral Youth Council, who was selected as a winner in the 2023 Florida League of Cities Youth Council video competition. This is a statewide competition that is open to all youth councils in Florida, and only 3 projects were selected as winners. And for this competition, the Florida League of Cities asked youth councils the following question: what makes your city, town, or village great? And so youth councils were required to create a video and write a narrative summary answering that question. If you haven't seen the video, I would highly encourage you to do so. It's a remarkable video that highlights the city's scenic locations, wildlife, population growth, and community events. The video speaks to the youth council's work through their monthly volunteering opportunities, such as their Adopt a Road program, which they do to keep their city clean and inviting. The council goes above and beyond and is one of the first councils in the state to create a strategic plan to help set the goals and guide the youth council through their work. So to the members of the Cape Coral Youth Council, I want to say thank you for your service to your community. The fantastic work that you've done is shining a spotlight on this city. So on behalf of the Florida League of Cities, I want to thank you for your fantastic work, and I want to say congratulations for being selected as a winner in this video competition. I'm here to present a trophy, but the Youth Council will also be receiving a check for $250. So congratulations and thank you, and we look forward to seeing all that you will accomplish this year. Thank you.
I didn't bring the clicker. Yeah, she's got it.
The video to play, if you'd like, if you just announce it, they'll play it.
Sure. And also, we had the video that Youth Council put together. So if we could go ahead and play that so we can take a look at how they won that award. And congratulations to each one of you for that award.
First off, our parks and access points to the water are unbeatable. Cape Coral maintains much of its natural beauty while still creating fun events for people to take part in. We also have a high rate of growth. We have a 7% increase annually of population. With our growing population, lots of families are moving in, which is great because we also have a great education system with over 7 high schools. Our city works hard to put on many events throughout the year, such as concerts, holiday festivals, bike nights, art walks, and more.
Dancing, buzzing like a gnat, her husband's yelling at her, but she's still glowing like a bluebird after she's
Member Shepherd.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and I want to let you know that I listen, and I understand what everybody's going through, and I'm going to work diligently on seeing what we can do. I mean, as a community, you guys are all important, not just the city workers, but the other citizens that came forward as well. So I hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
As a youth council, we pride ourselves on service and engaging with the public. In this video you're watching, we are cleaning up one of our busy roads within our city's Adopt a Road project. Our council commits to this project monthly to ensure we are environmentally conscious.
Hi, my name is Renee Bella. I'm a senior member of the Cape Coral Youth Council. We just finished our Adopt a Road cleanup, which is our monthly service project. We just drove back on that bus over there, and I was mainly in the median, so we picked up a lot of interesting things, but now the median looks a lot better and a lot cleaner, so when people are driving by, they don't see such a mess.
One special thing about the Youth Council that we are doing is creating a rock garden in one of our many parks in Cape Coral, which is the Lake Saratoga Park. What this garden is meant to do, the whole message of it, is to spread kindness and love through our citizens and actually allow them to get involved in doing service projects by creating different painted rocks and creating this beautiful garden for our community. So yeah, it's a very great little project that we're trying to implement. Hopefully we can do it by the end of the year, but yes, that's what we're doing in the Cape Coral Youth Council.
My name is Christian Widdish, and I'm a junior member of the Cape Coral Youth Council. This year we adopted rules of operations, which, because we were released from Sunshine Law, we decided to still maintain order in our meetings and still have voting procedure. So we adopted a book of rules of operations which details how the chair and vice chair are elected. It details how we vote, what constitutes a quorum for our meetings, and how members can make motions and things of that nature. We dedicate ourselves to ensuring that we run very smoothly so that we can pass our motions and so that we can execute our projects very well for the city. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mia Masorkowitz, and I'm a current junior member of the City of Cape Coral's Youth Council. This year, I was lucky enough to be able to serve on a Citizens Input Committee in regards to the renovations of the City of Cape Coral's Yacht Club, which unfortunately we did lose in the devastation of Hurricane Ian last year. However, this experience was overall very educational and just very cool. I mean, I was able to bring the youth's perspective onto an issue a real issue that our city was facing. So I'm just very grateful to be able to have been able to serve on this committee and, just do my part.
Our Youth Council made it a priority this year to make concrete strategic initiatives by defining who we are, how we treat others, our core competencies and capacities, our mission statement, and our vision statement. Using the info that we gathered from that, we then created strategic initiatives as it relates to people, assets, both physical and fiscal, time and process, and then created our message that would be both internal and external.
Well, congratulations on that video and that award. That's a job well done. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 6A is citizens' input time. A maximum of 60 minutes is set for the input of citizens on matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name for the record. We'll utilize the podium to my left, your right. Anyone wishing to speak on citizens' input, please come forward. Seeing none, citizens' input is now closed. Okay, we'll move on to item 6B is discussions. I would like to change the order a little bit and do the educational topic first, only because I know we have a guest speaker here, Superintendent Jackie Collins. So if we could possibly do the educational topic first, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Hayden to start with.
Thanks, Mayor. It's a quick overview about why we do this. Currently, I serve as the alternate liaison to the Youth Council, and it's been my privilege the last 3 years to not only serve in that position, but as liaison. And 3 years ago, we started this joint meeting. We thought it was important for the kids to have the opportunity to interact with the City Council, to share ideas, thoughts, questions, and do it in a public setting. These students have done amazing things, as you heard from Aaron and the award, and they continue to do great things during their youth council meetings, including setting up the strategic initiative or strategic plan. So as they were writing their questions for this particular meeting, I've also encouraged them to offer solutions when we get our answers, because I believe it's important that we hear what this city should look like through their eyes in the next 20 or 30 years when they might be working here, raising families. And that input, I think, for the city and for us, is important to hear their vision. Councilmember Cosden, who serves as a liaison, did you want to add anything before we move into the questions?
I would just like to ask that the youth council members remember that this is a dialogue. It's two-way. So you're going to hear a lot of stuff from us, but we want to hear from you too. So please just remember that as we answer your questions. We'd like to hear your input as well.
And Vice Chair Garcia, it's your turn to take it over.
Well, hello, City Council. Thank you so much for having us at our joint meeting today. I will start off our questions in education. So our first question in our education category is, what are the current plans to support law enforcement and the student resource officer programs within the Cape Coral charter schools, and what benefits are to those programs? I understand that we have a guest speaker, our superintendent of the charter schools here, so however that may be answered.
Hello, Jackie Collins. Thank you so much for having me. I was planning on answering the education question, but I can certainly speak to our supporting our law enforcement officers in our program. You know, they're a very important part of our family, we call it, and we involve our SROs in just about every daily function and activity throughout the course of the day. They're in the cafeteria, they're playing PE with our students. They're a very important part of our strategic plan to make our schools safe. We have a lot of things in place, but the most effective thing that's in place are those SRO officers. You see that everybody has a Centegix badge. We have the panic buttons. We have all doors locked on all campuses. We have fencing around the perimeter of our campus. But the most strategic thing that we can do is have those individuals on our campus, because they are the first responders. If there's an event that's going to happen, they're going to be there in the front lines protecting us. Did I answer that question effectively? And is there anything else I can say about supporting our SROs? We do, let me just add that we do receive money from the state of Florida to help pay for those SRO officers. SROs are very expensive people, so we don't necessarily receive enough money to pay their full salary and benefits, but what we do receive, we pay to the Cape Coral Police Department to support, us having them on our campuses. How'd I do?
So with that follow-up, is there any specific programs or trainings that you're really focusing on rather focused on this coming school year that were different from the previous school year? Any differences?
For SROs?
Yes.
Our SROs always do active shooter training. They also sit in on all the pre-service trainings that we do for teachers that you probably don't know about because you're not there yet. But the first week back, we do EpiPen training, we do active shooter training, which is actually physical training where we're engaged. We do tourniquet training, stop the bleed. There's quite a few trainings that they participate in with our teachers and staff, and sometimes they conduct those trainings. So we are going to maintain what we're doing because it seems to be a very effective program for us.
That's all my follow-up questions to pass off to my council. Do you have any follow-ups?
Okay.
Mayor, can I jump in real quick before we get to the next question? It wasn't going to take me long to ask you to respond. A year or so ago, we had a pretty honest conversation in here about everything you all have been through the last few years, whether it was COVID, hurricane, lockdowns. Just had a situation last week at Cape High where we had an active shooter situation. Fortunately, it was false, but I'd like to hear from some of you at least on how safe you feel in your schools and the confidence level that you have going to school, knowing that you will be well protected.
My name's Sophie DePiron from Cape Coral High School. So yeah, last week we actually did have a situation where someone threatened our school, so basically went into lockdown. For the first few minutes, we were kind of confused about what was going on because the teachers didn't have information. None of the students personally had any information, but it was mostly like quiet. And then we got information that there was a situation going around the school, and we kind of, through like the window because I was on the second floor, we heard like the helicopters like going around. So I was a little bit concerned, and then I just went on the news and I was looking around at stuff like that. But I'm actually on my school newspaper, and I'm actually reading an article about the lockdown and kind of showing how quickly we were able to lock down and also follow instructions. So I think at my school we did a really good job of that. So as soon as I was talking to one of our SROs today actually, and they kind of like just went through the steps of what goes on. So they called like for canines to search the area, see if the suspect was still around the school, and then also kind of the whole school went into lockdown mode. They talked about how they collaborated with the authorities, and then my own teacher was getting emails from administration, so it was also like constant communication between them, and our teacher let us know what's going on, which was really helpful because we were kind of like confused and we were kind of just getting it from secondary sources. So I think that in my school personally, I think they're doing a really good job, and I think that with all the drills, this was a very out of the blue thing because they usually announce it before there's a drill.
but I think that we were really well prepared for that, that our teachers responded well, our students responded well, and our SROs were able to pretty much quickly secure the situation.
My name is Christian Widdish. I represent Norfolk Myers High School. First off, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us. I know you have very busy schedules running the city, so thank you for your leadership. But something that Member Mazurkiewicz and I experienced just a year ago, back in 2022, Norfolk Myers High School had a similar situation where we had a swatting call come in, a threat call come into our school. A lot of students were injured, and really the one thing that I took away from it was, despite all the chaos that occurred, with the threatened danger that was before us, the Lee County Sheriff's Office, in collaboration with other local law enforcement agencies, was able to really secure the situation really quickly, and I think that that's something that kind of links back to Cape Coral, because I think that it's a combined effort between all law enforcement agencies, whether that be the Cape Coral Police Department, whether that be the Lee County Sheriff's Office, to protect kids. And so I think that, to answer your question, Councilmember Hayden, I think that when it comes to safety, I really do appreciate our SROs, but of course there could always be more things to be done at greater levels than just local government. The question is, like, why are people threatening schools? Why are people threatening children? Why are people, doing these things? We should be able to go to school and just be safe, but unfortunately that's not the environment that we live in. But as long as we continue this effort, this combined effort amongst all law enforcement agencies, we're able to curb this issue. So I think in terms of safety, I do feel safe, and I do trust my local law enforcement to uphold safety in all public, charter, and private schools.
Councilmembers, thank you.
Thank you. I was just wondering, and thank you for taking time out of your lives too, because you have your studies and your family life and athletics and everything. So thank you for your dedication to your cause and for being here this evening as well. Back, in the Stone Ages when I was in your seat, the big thing at our school was fire drills, and we would practice, and you'd go through the efforts just like there were a fire at the school. Do you feel like in your schools, as it relates to these active shooter situations and if you will, the drill, that the students know what they need to know, that when the alarm is made, that kind of everyone knows what to do and they're comfortable doing that? Do you think we need more preparation for that, or do you think we're good as far as the students knowing this is what we do when we find ourselves in one of these situations?
So I personally attend Oasis Charter High School, and we do many drills. I feel like we do get very prepared. But of course, there are some questions that linger not only in my mind, but in the rest of the student population on very specific situations. As you know, in Marjory Stoneman Douglas, the shooter, Nicholas Cruz, had pulled the fire alarm, and that's what got all the students out of classrooms, and then he began the shooting. So we do have a set protocol set in place where they do inform us on whether it is them pulling the fire alarm and whether we need to stay in our classrooms. But there are specific protocols, like what if we are outside? What if we're on the tennis court? What if we're exiting our cars like first thing in the morning? What if we're in the cafeteria, where cafeteria has up to like 150 students at my school eating lunch? What if the fire alarm gets pulled and things of that matter? Those kinds of things we don't really go over, and I feel like it's something that we should go over, and I feel that not only in my school but in other schools that's also a question that we may have, because it's it's easier to control a class of 25 students than it is to control a group of 150 in a cafeteria if a situation were to arise.
Thank you. Mia Mazurkiewicz, representing Norfolk Myers High School. To add on to what Member Widdish was saying, he mentioned how multiple students got injured during the swatting that occurred last year. It was actually because the swatting occurred during one of our lunch shifts. All of the students, our school has 1,500 students, and we're split into 3 lunch shifts. So we had around 300, 400 students in that cafeteria at the time. Nobody knew where to go. all of our students were pushed into the back where all of the lunch ladies and all the other food is, the kitchen, and somebody smashed a pan on the ground, a pan fell, and everyone went running. Students were trampled, students left the campus, jumped the fence. It was a huge mess. Nobody knew what to do. So while the protocols that we do practice during class time are effective and everyone knows what to do during that time, in the situations where we don't have a protocol for, students can get injured and nobody knows what to do. So thank you.
I also wanted to touch on the kind of issue of drills, but more importantly, I wanted to touch on the issue of desensitization. You know, we do several drills throughout the school year, every month, to help prepare us for a situation where someone wants to come to our school and wants to do irreparable damage to our community. And you know, no matter how many drills we do, like Member Mazurkiewicz was talking about, I don't think that we can ever do enough to prepare students for such a traumatic event where someone wants to come to our schools and commit great acts of violence. But to go back to my original point about desensitization, there's also an issue, you know, with the influence of, you know, social media or whatever factors you want to talk about. Kids are becoming rather desensitized to this issue. They're becoming, you know, I don't want to say almost used to it, but it is seeming that way, that people are like, oh yeah, there was another swatting threat, or there was another school shooting somewhere. And every time a tragedy happens, whether that be in Florida or across the nation, you know, we're seeing this problem where people are becoming desensitized to it, and they're not as much as they should be, you know, trying to focus and continue the message that we need to do more to protect our schools. And really, when we talk about the issue of gun violence and of school shootings, law enforcement is doing pretty much everything it can. They are ensuring that there are deputies on school grounds. We have the open, I believe it's the open gate system that are installed at Lee County Public Schools, where we're trying to track weapons. And so concerning the issue of drills, you know, that is what we can physically and feasibly do, but we will never be wholly prepared and totally prepared for something like that to happen. But I just think that continuing the effort that local governments, the state, the federal government has been doing to protect kids and to ensure that law enforcement is readily supported, I think that that's all that we can do to protect kids moving forward.
Any other comments by council?
I just want to say thank you for the information that you brought forward. It'll help us to learn how to improve and what steps we need to take to make things even better. So the knowledge that you gave us with the past helps be creative on new ideas to move forward. Thank you.
Do you want to go into your next question?
What plans are in place to increase teacher retention in the Cape Coral charter schools? For example, increasing teacher salaries and implementing a grant program.
Ms. Collins, you want to come up first?
Okay, Jackie Collins, Oasis Charter School System. I can tell you what we're doing at the charter school system. Now, you have to remember that charter schools are a little bit different than regular traditional public schools. First of all, we're smaller, and most importantly, we're funded differently. So the funding that the charter schools receive is a lot less, about 70 cents on the dollar, than what a traditional public school would receive. Traditional public schools can raise taxes. The traditional public schools, you know, the half-cent sales tax, they use those funds to purchase goods and to support the system. We're not able to do that as a charter school. So with limited funding, we can do limited things for our staff and our teachers. We weren't able to give anything more than a 1% increase this year to our teachers. We put that in the budget. But what we could do was we could give our teachers a big bonus system this year. And then hopefully next year we'll come up with another strategic plan. So what we did for our teachers was that based on years of service within our charter school system, we gave them a bonus amount. Some teachers that have been there for 15 years could make upwards of about $6,000. And then we're doing a reoccurring longevity bonus for every year over 10 years that they stay within our system. They get an additional $1,000. So this year, we gave them a bonus at Christmas time. We gave them, depending on the years of service, anywhere from $1,200 to $5,500. That's going to be payable in March. In May, we're going to give them a longevity bonus. If they've been here 10 plus years, that could be between $650 and $1,250. And then next year is a different ballgame, because next year we added a 1% increase to their base salaries. We're bumping everybody's starting salary up to $50,000. And we get an allotment from the Florida Department of Education for teacher salaries so that we can maintain $50,000 and that we can pay veteran teachers a little bit more. So I'm hoping that if we disperse that wisely, it'll probably be between a 2 and a 3% increase in addition to the 1% that they'll get next year. So that could potentially be anywhere between a 3 and a 4% increase to their base salary plus another bonus structure. Now, Lee County School District is completely different. They have extra funding for salaries. So they did very well by their teachers this year. They gave them anywhere from a 3.5% increase to an 11.5% increase. That's a good amount of money. And I can tell you how they did that. They reconfigured their transportation system so that, and if you're from Lee County, you probably know that if you're assigned to a certain elementary or middle school, and one or two, and those are your choices. If you want transportation to school, you have to choose one of those elementary schools. No longer are they transporting outside of their zone areas. So they've actually saved about $10,000 a day that they are using to put toward teacher salaries. So their teacher salary improvement plan cost them about $32 million this year, which is great. But things compound over time. So next year it's going to cost them, if they did a raise, it would cost them a little bit more. So what they decided to do was take their teacher incentive program, freeze it for 3 years, and then after 3 years, they'll reevaluate how they're going to pay their teachers. Are teachers deserving of these raises? Absolutely. As you know, or if you don't know, finding teachers in this day and age is very hard to find. We used to, for every one available teaching spot in our system, we'd have between 30 and 35, sometimes 50 applicants. Now when we have a teaching position available, we might have 1 or 2. I've had an 8th grade science position open over the course of almost the entire school year. I've got 600 hits on Indeed, and I had 2 applicants. So what does that tell you? There's a lot of factors, underlying factors that we need to figure out for teachers, but the biggest is we need to pay them what they deserve. So, you can't pay teacher salary out of reserve funds. You can't pay it really out of grant funding, because grant funding is a one-time thing for a very specific reason. You have to have a strong revenue source to maintain teacher salaries. But we do have these great grants that are winding down from COVID. It's called ESSER 3. And what we're going to do to retain our teachers is we're going to pay them a one-time lump sum to be a mentor and coach to new teachers. So for $5,000, over the course of the year, they'll have to go into new teacher classrooms and try to help them with bell schedules and classroom management and things like that. But I think that it's a good incentive to develop leadership in teachers, and it'll give them a little extra money in their pockets. Also, if a person comes to us and they can teach a high-level science, math, or technical course, we give them a sign-on bonus of $5,000, because those teachers in those areas are hard to find. Colleges and universities just aren't producing teachers that are, familiar with those subject areas, that are educated in those subject areas. And one last thing that we're going to try to do to retain teachers is we're going to try to add coursework on starting next year. That's going to try to interest our high school students to become teachers. So there'll be a class you can take, and you can go into the middle school or the elementary school classrooms and learn how to work with children, follow a teacher's lead and a paraprofessional's lead, and hopefully you'll want to, in turn, go to school to become a teacher. And there could potentially long-term be some kind of bonus or scholarship program that we can offer if you return to us as a teacher for a number of years. We're going to talk to certain local area groups that are offering scholarships. I think Lee County School District is in the same predicament, and they're working on those same programs. So we're working very hard not only to find teachers, but to keep them in place.
Good. How about get a microphone? Thank you.
So how do you foresee the future of the charter system moving forward? Because as you said, you're having a hard time keeping teachers. And I can speak for the rest of the Oasis High School students here when I say that we're losing teachers. We're losing some of the teachers we intended on having the next year. So, and that's presumably, of course, because of the raises they're receiving at the Lee County school system. So how do you foresee, or how do you plan on keeping them at the charter system when the Lee County school system is enticing them?
Well, we've got a great little system going on at Oasis. We call it the Oasis because for a teacher, to live and work in the charter school system is a little bit different than living and working in a large district. The school district has 100,000 students. High schools in Lee County have 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 students. We have a small teaching body at Oasis. Our high school only has 800 students. It's going to be 850 next year. Our middle school and elementary schools have about 800 students, and that creates a little bit of a different lifestyle. Charter schools are unique because we can create our own coursework, like we've created the STEM program, K through 12. We have a little more creative freedom to do things like that. We can use different curriculum. There's not a lot of overhead so that our teachers can be creative in their classrooms, and the workload is not as rigid as it would be in Lee County. You don't have to follow a certain guideline and be on that guideline every single day. There's a little bit of flexibility for our teachers. So really for our teachers, it's a lifestyle change. We find that when they come from Lee County, they want to stay because they like the workload, they like dealing with our students, because you have to remember, charter schools, parents choose to send their children to charter schools. They don't get selected, or there's no school choice. They want to come for a reason, and they understand what those reasons are. And we find that when you have groups of parents and children that come together for very specific reasons like academics, it's very important to them, you have a great student body. So there are a lot of those little nuances that don't have a dollar value on them that are very important that the charter system can add. And we can do it because we're small. Lee County is so large, it's very hard to affect those things that we can affect easily because they're a giant. So when you talk to a teacher, and I encourage you to talk to your teachers, there are reasons why they're there. We've got a great benefits program. In some instances, it's a lot cheaper to have our benefit program than what you would receive in Lee County. It's hard anywhere to be a teacher, and you have to offer those little things to keep them and keep them happy. And we have to market that to our teachers, and we do. And we do it very well. But there are other things in addition to the salary that can attract them and keep them at home at Oasis. Did I answer your question? Okay.
I just want to kind of ask a follow-up, in general concerning, as a professional in the field of education, my question is, there's a national teacher shortage. Your professional opinion, why is there a national teacher shortage?
Variety of reasons. Number one is salary. Number two is that the profession is not necessarily as respected as it is in other countries. And that's very difficult for teachers. The day and age is changing. The students that are coming into schools, their generation, I want to call them alphas now. You have been born into a world where your world existed with computers and laptops and social media and cell phones, and your brains think differently than someone who has been a teacher for the last 40 years. When I started as a teacher, I had a chalkboard. I wrote on the chalkboard. So society has changed, and not everybody can roll with the punches. It's difficult to deal with the factors that influence our youth today. The level of we have different groups of parents that value different things. They don't always value the things that the teachers do in the classroom. Behaviors are changing. There's a lot of different factors that go into education today. But I do have to say, the profession needs to be respected, and their work needs to be valued, and they need to be compensated. And those are the biggies that I think we're lacking in society today. And I think if they made six figures a year, you'd have a lot more applicants that wanted to go into the profession. They'd value the position. They'd be able to pay their bills. Teachers have a hard time on our income. $55,000 a year might sound like a lot, but if you're a single parent with children, trying to find housing in Cape Coral is very difficult. And I think it's getting that way all over the country. Housing is very expensive. And I was talking to the city Office of Economic Development about what can we do to help teachers with workforce housing. We want to recruit them and come into this area, but if they can't afford to live here, we've got to help them in some way. If you can't afford to live and pay your bills, you're not going to come, and you're not going to teach. So I'm getting off topic. Did I answer your question effectively? There's a lot of reasons why we're not seeing people go into the profession like we should, and it's going to be a societal change. It can't just happen right here in Cape Coral. It's got to happen all over the country to bring people into the profession.
Just as a follow-up to my initial question, objectively speaking, do you believe that the charter system is in good shape in terms of student-to-teacher ratio moving forward?
In terms of student-to-teacher ratio, yes, I think we're in good shape. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have some substitutes in classes. We've got people that are going out on maternity leave. We're filling those, in with long-term subs, but that's a typical process. But are our ratios good? Yes, we're small. We're meeting class size. Could it be better? Absolutely. But for some reason, we tend to get lucky with our applicants. Somebody knows somebody that knows somebody, and so we pull teachers from Lee County. We're pulling teachers from other states. So yes, I feel confident. Is it something that we need to really work hard on to make sure that we maintain our levels of teachers? Yes. And anybody that tells you no is not telling you the truth. We're all worried about it. But I think we worry every year, over the summertime, because that's our biggest time that we hire. Are we going to get enough applicants? Are we going to get enough teachers that can teach ACE and STEM? But we have to start thinking about how we can grow from within and give our teachers extra professional development and training so that they are able to teach these courses. So it's really about working within and providing the training so that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish. Okay.
Hi, and thank you for coming. I'm Alexa Anchetta, and I'm a senior at Oasis High School. I've been there since kindergarten, and I just want to add how I agree completely with everything you're saying, and I think this is definitely a topic that has to bring awareness. We need to bring awareness to. I was talking today with my guidance counselors on what they thought would keep teachers in the system, and they were saying how they need to be compensated for their main role is teaching the next generation of future leaders and basically the people that are going to run the country for the next 50 years. And it's something that has to be respected, that they are kind of implementing these ideas and making sure that these people are educated so they can run our country. And our teacher, to add on to the teacher to student ratio, I think it's something we do need to prioritize, even though we're doing amazing already. It's something we need to prioritize because in my personal experience this year, I didn't have a teacher that was qualified to teach our Chem 2 class. So we're in a self-study class, me and a group of 5 students. So it's definitely something that has to be prioritized and we need to bring awareness to, and I'm glad that we are able to have this conversation today and bring awareness within our community. And this is only just the first step. We have to bring awareness to our state governments and our federal governments as well. So thank you for being here and for having this conversation with us.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carr.
Thank you. I'm just sitting here, and my enthusiasm for the future has gotten much greater today watching all of you speak, and your interest in the educational process and your educational system specific to Cape Coral is fantastic. With regard to retention, I think that money is an obvious thing that we'd all wish to be able to give teachers anything we possibly could, and even things we can't give them. But setting that aside, I think the retention element can be helped with environment. And I think our charter school system's environment is our sales pitch to new teachers, retention of teachers, because it is dramatically different than the district. And I think the educators that are here now will tell you that. And I think the educators in the Lee County system will tell you that as well. Encouragement of students that want to come back and be teachers, I think that's huge. I mean, I think if we can do that in a way that's better than we do today, have a path, have a growth mechanism within our system to get them to come back. And I think, someone as yourself that went to the system from kindergarten through, your loyalty is already there. So if you have an interest in academia and want to be a teacher, I think your first thought's going to be come back here, right? It was for my daughter. My daughter's an educator in the OASIS system in the elementary schools. And she was here day one when the system opened and came back. And I'm proud of her for that. And I've never had more respect for educators than I do today. I had a short stint with the Lee County School District and saw day to day what they dealt with at all levels. And my respect for the profession dramatically rose through my experience. Even with a child in the educational system, I didn't have the appreciation that I did once I saw it for myself. So I think anything that we can do as a system to allow and give opportunity to students to shadow, see what it is to be an educator, even within our system in the OASIS system, that will help us retain and recruit for the future. Money's always going to be an issue, but it's not the only issue. Much of my careers were in government, not always paid the best. There's always more money in the private sector, but that wasn't always the motivation for me. So you need to find something else that hooks on to the teacher to keep them there. Environment is a critically important one. They want to be able to go to work and enjoy being there. They all went to be teachers for a reason. It's not the highest paid profession, never has been, probably never will be, unfortunately. But with students such as yourselves and them seeing the success through you, that's the retention piece for teachers. It's a retention piece for me to want to give back to the community. It's a retention piece for me and an incentive for me to do more for you, just listening to you. So I think the more you can interact and have your peers interact with your educators, that's going to help the system succeed and to retain our teachers for the future. So thank you for being here.
Any other discussion with council? Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for showing interest in the incomes of your teachers. That's awesome that you respect them and appreciate them, and they do deserve more money. But you can all give them a raise. And you can spread the word to your peers that the people that are your teachers are teachers because they're passionate about helping young adults and young people. Pull them aside one day and just say thank you for the impact that they had on your life. That's going to keep that teacher in that position, because that's the majority of them, they're not there for the money. They're there because they're passionate about what they do. So you got to keep that passion strong. Thank them, pull them aside, tell them they had an impact on your life. But at the same time, it is a reality that we need to pay them a wage to keep them to be able to live in our community. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other discussion on that particular question, I guess we'll go to question 3.
Thank you, Council. Has the City Council considered addressing mental health among students, and if so, how has it been addressed already?
Councilmember Hayden?
Yeah, I think it's addressed in a lot of different ways, and I think we touched on it earlier when we talked about the meeting that we had with all of you last year when we paused the agenda and just talked about how you were feeling. And I think taking the role of a listener and a communicator and really understanding what you're feeling is important at any level. You know, it may not necessarily be addressed specifically on this dais during a public meeting, but it happens in many other ways, because what you all are facing now is, we talk about lockdowns and what might be on social media and the bullying that might exist. You're all going through a lot. And if we don't have the ability to listen, I don't know that we can help understand exactly what you're feeling. Then try and get students the right help. We know Florida ranks per capita among the worst states in the country in funding. And we need to continue to work with our local legislators, with our congressmen, our senators to increase. You know, we've talked a lot about money today, but unfortunately that can drive a lot of this, and you know, making sure that programs that are having high success rates are adequately funded so that that help can be there. You know, making sure that your schools have the counselors that you need, and making sure we're aware of what's happening inside those schools, making sure that our nonprofits are adequately funded with the therapists and counselors that they have. But I think from all different levels, whether it's us or other people, you know, we have to have the ability to pay attention to what you're going through, especially with what's happened the last 4 years. You know, we know separation anxiety was a big thing during COVID. You were missing your friends. You were stuck in a room somewhere. You couldn't communicate the way you wanted to. So, you know, paying attention to that. And I think a youth council provides a resource for not only all of you to come together and talk about things that you're going through, but also reaching out to others and letting them know how you're feeling as well. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Cosden?
Thank you. This might seem out of left field, but parks, I think, are really important for mental health and the sense of community. And this whole council, everyone here, has supported parks. I can't remember when Youth Council started. I think it might have been 2017-18. But the Youth Council then gave us feedback that we needed more parks and community spaces. And we listened, and obviously we're still listening, but to me, parks are an important part of mental health. Thank you.
Maybe Ms. Collins, as far as the OASIS charter school system, maybe tell us, you know, what the charter school does.
We have a number of things that we do at the charter schools, and I wonder, do you know about them? First of all, we do a mental health training that all staff has to be trained, and it's a 6-hour training every 3 years, and it has to be renewed. So we just trained about 90% of our staff this year on this mental health training, and it's about awareness, what to look for when a student has an issue, anxiety, depression, so, you know, withdrawing socially. So, and I don't just mean teachers that were trained. I mean, the bus driver is going to be trained, the food service workers, the paraprofessionals, the front office staff. Everybody is mandated to have this training so they can identify signs and symptoms that could cause, you know, problems down the road. I'm trying to think. We have social workers and counselors that can talk to students. We have guidance classes. There's also the training module that we do at Oasis Charter Schools. I'm sure you know, it's during your PE class or your HOPE class, where it talks about you know, social issues and how to address them, how to be more resilient in the face of problems. But I think one of the most important things that we do, and we do it at the elementary level, is that we assign a student that has a special need. Can be anything, can be academic, can be, they don't get along with other people, they don't feel welcome in their classroom. We assign them to an adult other than their classroom teacher. So they always have this mentor to go to anytime they feel that they need to speak to somebody. It's for motivation, it's for encouragement, it's for academics. It's called SOS, Students Support Our Students, at Oasis North, and the Care Coach program at Oasis South. And I think having one person that you can connect to could be very meaningful if you're struggling in some way. So there are a variety of other things that we do. We have the mobile crisis unit that can be called in if we have a student that's in danger. But really connecting, I find, with one other person in your academic environment is crucial. And your teachers are, they've been trained on how to reach out and how to try to identify problems. So those are those little tiny things behind the scenes that you might not know about, but if you were to reach out, everybody should have an idea of what to do and how to direct you, depending on what your need is.
Okay, I'll open up for any discussion on Youth Council.
Thank you, Mayor. So I recently, last week, I attended an event where the Lee County School Superintendent, some school board members, and even some district staff were there. And the event was trying to promote youth issues. One of the issues that was brought up was the shortage of social workers, not just in Lee County, but nationally. Nationally, like teachers, there's a shortage of social workers. And so what we're seeing is even here in the Lee County School District, one social worker assigned to several schools, right? So we're having one social worker take on the workload of 2 or 3 schools. That does not serve the purpose of what a social worker is supposed to be. Social worker is supposed to be able to serve a singular school and help students there and be grounded in one location, but we're having this shortage, and so we're having these very terrible ratios from schools to social workers. And so what we're also seeing, though, is a really interesting phenomenon, even here in Lee County, is when I was at this event, I had talked to a district staff member, and she told me that because of the lack of funding, in the coming weeks, we're going to be doing a round of terminations of social workers, not based on performance, but based upon the fact that they don't have the money to keep paying their salaries. And so we kind of come to this crossroads where we're like, okay, we have this huge need for mental health, to try and help our kids that are going through crises, but then we have this other kind of just as equal force of the fact that we don't have the funding to pay their salaries. And so it kind of comes to this thing with local governments where we're concerned, we want to pay our local teachers, but we can't do it, ourselves, like as a local government, as a city council, as a school board governing, a charter school board governing organization. So we're kind of at this federal and state issue where we're not getting the funding coming down from the larger powers, people that can actually pay for these things. And so I guess the point of me bringing this up is to kind of open a question to the city council. You all appoint the charter school board of governors. So what is it moving forward? Is that all that you do is appoint these governors, or can you also set standards as a city council working with the board of governors to help these social workers and to help kind of create these salaries? I know that was a really long rant, but yeah.
Questions before I turn it over to city council? Nope. Okay. Any city council discussion on that? And could you clarify your question that you were asking?
Yeah, sorry about that. So my question is, as a local government, right, you can only do what you can do, right? But then we have the federal and state government that you're also working with to try and help this problem. So what can you do working with the Charter School Board of Governors to help support social workers in schools?
I think one of the things that we could do is, as a local government and a body, is possibly advocate with our state and our federal lobbyists and our legislators, because most of, especially when you're talking about mental health, most of that is regulated at least by the state. So I think if we could try to help advocate to our legislators to make sure that they have the resources necessary to, you know, to address the task at hand. As you had mentioned earlier, you have one social worker working at 3 schools. It sounds like you have about 1,500 students per school. That's 4,500 students, and you have one social worker. And I'm sure, I'm not an expert on it, but I'm sure if you look at the best practices, I'm sure that's not the ratio that we're looking for. So I think one of the things that we can do as a local government, like we do on many other issues that not only involve here at our city, but throughout the state, we could advocate and try to get additional resources made available to those state agencies to make sure that they have the resources that they need to address the problem. Any other discussion, Councilmember Long?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just to add on to that, I think he answered the question without answering it, is that we don't have a direct involvement with the board outside of appointing him, as you alluded to. But what we do is we have a council liaison that we appoint, which in this case is myself, who part of the responsibility is to convey those sorts of messages if it's the wishes of the council, and then vice versa. And so that's something that I could certainly convey to them as well. Also, I guess as an additional component that we could indirectly involve ourselves in that, as far as those discussions with them, is when we do make those appointments, we do have the opportunity to speak with the appointees on an individual basis, and we could, on our own individual basis, inquire with them as to what some of their goals are, or what our desire would be for them in that role, so that they could, in their own body, because it is an independent body, independent of this council, further those discussions and improve in that way. So hopefully that specifically answers the question. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, I think we've addressed those 3 questions, and we'll move on to the next topic of discussion, and we'll go back to the environment that's number 1 on the list, and I'll turn it over to the chair. Councilmember Hayden, did you want to touch base with anything first on the environment topic?
No, I think the environment's been an important part of our discussions moving forward, especially with their strategic initiatives. And so I'll, you know, as we answer their questions on this, I'll be interested in hearing your thoughts on potential solutions moving forward with something that certainly in our strategic plan is important with all levels of the environment, whether it be wetlands, wildlife, dealing with pollution in our canals. So,
Councilmember Cosden, you have anything before I turn it over to Youth Council?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to hand this question over to Member Roman. Is that who's next in Muncie? All right. So Member Roman.
Yes, Member Roman. Considering the uptick in construction citywide, what regulations are in place to prevent the pollution of our waterways from construction waste?
Good evening, Justin Heller, Senior Planner with Cape Coral Planning Division. Some of the things that we have for our construction sites that are required is every construction site is required to have a dumpster. They're also required to put up silt fencing adjacent to any drains or inlets, and turbidity curtains in the canals as well if they're adjacent to any water bodies. So those are just a couple things that we do to help prevent trash and debris to get into those canals.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So when our council was developing this question, it was actually brought up by Member Levitt. Was that your question? That was your question? So we were discussing that with the construction, we noticed that there was a lot more pollution. And though we understand that there are required regulations that you do put in place that must be followed by those workers, we tend to see that it tends to be pushed aside, or that they're careless and they leave pollution everywhere. So is there any sort of training that follows up with those regulations that they must go through maybe annually or biannually or anything like that?
Are you referring to training of contractors?
Yes, the people that would work on the site, that would be working with the materials where the trash, if it is thrown away, would they be going through any sort of training to make sure that that trash is consolidated into one area and disposed of properly?
You want to take that one? All right.
Good evening, Matthew Grambo, Interim Development Services Director here at the City of Cape Coral. Regarding training, we do work with multiple local stakeholder organizations for the construction industry, one that's specific to the City of Cape Coral, and then one that is for all of Lee County. And so they do some educational activities for their contractors who are doing construction within the city, and there are environmental components to that. But as far as the compliance with the regulations, and I think that's kind of where you're trying to hit, we have a couple different methods at our disposal. First, we require the appropriate permits for any type of construction project. Depending on the body of water that the project's on, it could have obviously city permits, but then also permits through the state, as well as with the federal government through the Army Corps of Engineers. So when they have the appropriate permits in place, they have inspections that are associated with each project. Within the City of Cape Coral, our inspectors are on the site, the construction site, throughout the project period, from when there's no vertical structure all the way through the end of the construction project. And if they notice a violating condition with debris or trash or the lack of a silt barrier, lack of a dumpster, they notate that, and they can fail inspections throughout the process. So that slows the project, it costs the contractors money, it serves as an incentive to address that violating condition. At the very end of the project, for a single-family home where they're attempting to get their certificate of occupancy, there's also an inspection that involves looking at the construction site and ensuring that everything is in compliance and everything is cleaned up. Also, our code enforcement division within development services, which is very proactive. Over 70% of their cases are proactive, that our inspectors actually notice in the field, don't have to be called in, are looking for violating conditions on construction sites. So even if it's something in between inspections and they notice it, we can make sure that we communicate that there's a violating condition and that the contractors address that condition. But we're always looking at ways that we can improve our enforcement. We know with the surge in construction within the City of Cape Coral, there can be all the regulations in the world, but if you are not appropriately enforcing those regulations, you're going to end up with situations with increases in construction debris, which can make their way into our city's many canals and waterways and cause environmental issues. So we're always looking at opportunities for us to improve our enforcement. Our code compliance manager and his team have a very detailed training program for new code compliance officers so that they can notice what is a violating construction site, what's not a violating construction site. Same thing with our building inspectors in my department, development services, as well as public works and utilities. Everyone is looking for those types of conditions. And we're continuing to use technology to be able to track and monitor and see trends in contractors that are kind of the repeat offenders, which builders, which contractors are leaving more violating sites throughout the city than others. So we're using analytics to identify our problem children, so to speak, and make sure that we're communicating with them, with our building official and other staff within the building division to let them know that they could have delays in their projects or could even be fined for violating conditions on their construction sites. So we're always looking for opportunities. And then of course, we have our 311 service here at the city. So if a citizen notices down their street a construction site that may be violating or where there's debris getting into the canals, we're able to, through that system, through that technology, as simple as an app or a phone call or an email, identify the property, and then we send a staff member out there to address that situation.
You have any questions with Youth Council? Okay.
Not a question, but thank you so much for answering my question. It was very thorough.
It was a good question.
It was very thorough. I have no follow-up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good, sir.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Member Garcia was saying. Thank you very much for having that service. Just really small question. Can the city impose fines on construction companies who continuously violate these standards?
That's a really, really good question. Right now, we utilize the permitting process and have re-inspections, which there's a increasing re-inspection fee, so the re-inspection will cost more if they fail an inspection due to a violating condition. But we're also constantly looking at what's legal under state law in terms of how we can address situations with contractors directly rather than property owners.
Any other questions from Youth Council? Open it up for the City Council. You have any questions or comments? Councilmember Long?
Yeah, just to follow up on Member White's inquiry. I mean, that's something that I took a particular interest in because in my district in the Northwest, there's predominantly, as far as the new construction for single family, it resides in that area. And it's something that I hear about from my constituents on a pretty routine basis with regards to overflowing dumpsters and wind events and storm events, which of course allow that debris, if it even makes it into the dumpster, sometimes it doesn't, to then scatter throughout the neighborhoods and into the waterways, et cetera. And so one of the problems that Mr. Grambo had alluded to is the legalities with regards to some of the penalties that we can or cannot impose. And so I've had many discussions with the city manager's office on a couple different ways, and unfortunately some of them ended with basically the building officials saying that we can or cannot do that. For example, I think one of the things that I had potentially mentioned was incentivizing them to do so in ways similar to what he had stated with if you show up in the site, if you show up for a roofing inspection or anything and the site is dirty, that you turn around and you leave until the site is in compliance. I believe that the building official said that that wasn't something that we could do. And so it's something that we continue to be mindful of. We're working on a couple different things. It's my understanding, I don't know whether staff has taken a position on it yet, but I had inquired about whether, I don't know if you've taken an interest in looking at it, but there sometimes you see a situation where there's like a plywood dumpster that's been fabricated out front, which 9 times out of 10 doesn't get cleaned up at all, or has some sort of malfunction. The sides fall out, and it increases issues. I believe originally that was allowed because there was a shortage on dumpsters, and I'm not sure that that's still the case. So I'm looking into possibly having that removed from being an allowable use. So things like that are at the forefront of discussions that we continue to have. I just want to make sure that you're aware that we are looking into that. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. My grandfather had a saying, many hands make light work. And what I'd share with you as it relates to our environment and the amount of environment that we have, many eyes make light work. And so the city implemented, and many of you may be aware, maybe you're not, a 311 system, which basically allows all of us to be eyes of our environment. And so through an app on your phone or through an email to the city, to 311@capecoral.gov, if you observe any of these potential violations, or if you perceive that someone is not taking care of the environment the way they should, you can certainly make a comment and report a situation or an incident through that 311 system, both on the app on the phone or through 311 at capecoral.gov. And so the more we spread that word and make sure that all of our citizens understand that resource and how powerful it can be, the staff that we have does a great job with the amount of, if you will, square miles they can cover in a day. But all of us, in the number of miles that we cover in a day, if we see something, it's as simple as reporting it. And then that situation gets channeled to the right person who can evaluate it and put someone on the job, so to speak, to investigate it and take action if action's necessary. So I would say that as much as you can help spread that word, I know we as council members share that with our constituents when they call. We can further something along the way, but we personally aren't in charge of the department that handles it. But the 311 system puts every single situation into the department that can actually do something about it. So it's much more expeditious to do it that way. And with everyone helping, everyone participating, I think we cover more ground and can handle it a lot quicker as well.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, many of you may not know, but I am a home builder as well. And as far as the containers that Councilmember Long had mentioned, as far as the plywood homemade kind of containers, typically they fail. They're not built proper. So when you start loading them up with debris and trash, usually they just break apart. So I would support any type of, a new regulation that you would have to have a metal container. That metal container could be a dumpster. It could be a dump trailer that's constructed specifically for that purpose. Those type of items, that's what they're designed for, and they're going to work. I was traveling down Kismet Parkway today, and there was one of those plywood dumpsters that was all broke apart, had 3 times the amount of trash that it should have been in it. 99% of the time, it's the contractor's fault that that particular site looks the way it does. But I will tell you, there's a lot of illegal dumping that goes along as well, and I'll give you an example. I had a new dumpster swapped out at one of my construction sites Friday. I went back there yesterday morning, it was half full from illegal dumping. So people just pull into the site, they see a fresh, empty dumpster, and then they just pile debris in there quickly and then leave. So there is a illegal dumping. The one instance that I told you with the plywood dumpster on Kismet, I just noticed that there was some furniture out in front of it here the last few days. Looked like somebody just come along, saw what was supposed to be a dumpster and just piled a bunch more stuff on there. So we do have some illegal dumping issues here within the city as well. It's hard to mitigate those type of problems. Fortunately, I put cameras on all my construction sites, so I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I got to go back and look at the feed from the camera over the weekend. So you may get a particular vehicle, you may see an individual or 2 individuals, but a lot of times it's hard to get a tag number and things of that sort. So that is that's a difficult task to try to overcome, but that's out there as well. As far as the silt fences, that thing of polluting the waterways, I think that's extremely important. The silt fence keeps any of the debris from going over into the canals or the waterway. I know that the city is pretty stringent on that to make sure that that is followed. So if they come out, as Mr. Grambo mentioned, if they come out, do an inspection, if the silt fence isn't up or it's fallen down, you'll usually get a notice as a contractor to get that repaired. But great questions, and I look forward to that next question. You got any other discussion on this question? Go ahead, Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, in light of your comments, Mr. City Attorney, am I correct? Am I able to request a second from a member here to move forward with an initiative?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So then I would ask any of you to support me with a second to move forward with working with staff to maybe potentially modify the ordinance to prohibit or modify in some way the allowance of the plywood dumpsters that we discussed in lieu of the manufactured metal dumpsters.
Second that.
Thank you. And there you have it, government in action.
Okay, let's move on to your next question that you have, and I'll turn it over to the chair.
Thank you, sir. I will turn over our second question in environment to Member Feichtballer.
All right. The second question is, do you think that the environment will be under better or worse conditions considering the expected population growth over the next 10 years?
Councilmember Hayden.
Well, I hope to God it's going to be better. I was just thinking, 50 years from now, when you get to be my age, this city's going to be built out, or close to being built out, at around 400,000 people. How we balance that growth with our environmental challenges is going to be critical to where that is, and it starts with this council, and it starts now for how we manage that going forward. Some of the things we're doing now is we have the partnership with the city of Fort Myers on the Caloosahatchee Connect project, which is bringing millions of gallons of reclaimed water over to the city of Cape Coral for our canals to replenish them and help with other things. We have a reservoir up north in Charlotte County where we're bringing water down to, again, help with our irrigation and irrigation systems. I believe that project was still remains funded in the legislative budget. So hopefully that will continue as we seek grant money for that. We have a water conservation or irrigation ordinance that will go into effect this year, which will help people water more efficiently. And that helps with a lot of things. We still have a lot of systems up north that draw from wells from the Mid-Hawthorne aquifer. And that aquifer is watched closely by the South Florida Water Management District for low levels. So the sooner that we can get more households, more properties online with our city utilities, that's important for relief from that aquifer. And all this helps with the environment moving forward, taking more septic systems offline, making sure that we enforce when people shouldn't fertilize at the wrong times to keep stormwater runoff and nutrients out of our canals. We have to work with the Army Corps and our legislators on releases from Lake Okeechobee, as is happening right now, and what that could mean to our canal systems. A few years ago, we funded 10 bubble curtains, which will help keep macroalgae out of 10 of our canals that can be recipients of some of that algae and push it away and send it down into the salt water. Well, it's where it's easier to dissipate. Working with Lee County on properties that could be available for 2020 conservation land moving forward. Looking at some of our parks that are critical and ideal to wetlands and water conservation, like Joe Coviello Park, an environmental classroom that the OASIS students and Ida Baker students can use to learn more about the environment. So there's a lot happening. There's going to be a lot more happening going forward, and it's noted in our strategic plan, and I think you all have discussed it. And I'll wait for some of my other colleagues to weigh in, but this is one of those questions where I would like to hear your solutions as well, because the environment may be our responsibility now, but it could be yours in the future. And how we preserve and protect that as this city grows, will be so critical to who wants to live here in the future. With 405 miles of canals, we know how precious our environment and what a treasure it is. Thanks, Mayor.
For me, when you look at all the growth that we're having in our city, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Florida, actually in the nation. You're always going to have to be able to find that balance. I know we have some partnerships, Friends of Wildlife is just one example. So we have to try to find that balance between our environment, our wildlife, and the explosive growth that we have. One of the things that I look at that I see as such a detriment to our environment is the LACO releases. I'm an avid boater. I was out 2 weeks ago. The water was beautiful. Bluish green, out near Sanibel. I went out last weekend. It was coffee brown, just within a week. So once you start releasing from LACO, it's just what you see that it does to the environment. It's just unbelievable. And anything that's going to fix that is funding. We have a plan in place, and we're moving along. Unfortunately, those of you that you probably, because of your age, but we've been talking about this problem for many years. I remember when I moved here 15 years ago, they were talking about it, and we're still talking about it, and they'll probably talk about it another 15 years from now. But it's just getting the proper funding mechanism in place we have a plan, we know what we can do to mitigate it, it's just getting it done. And I think we always have to make sure that we are constantly engaged with our state and our federal legislators to get that across the finish line. You know, we see bits and pieces of that project coming on board, whether it's a pump station or one of the reservoirs, but we have to get that whole project completed. That will be such a great accomplishment, I think, for the environment in our community especially, because we take the brunt of that. You know, there's more water being released to this side of the West Coast side than the East Coast side. And what you see firsthand of how it affects the environment is just unbelievable. So I think that is, for me, personally, I think that is the number one issue because that affects everything. That affects our tourism. I remember back in 2018 when we had the blue-green algae outbreak. I lived a couple canals off the river. I couldn't even go out in my backyard because it smelled so bad. And when you have these releases from Lake O, that's what precipitates some of these outbreaks. So to me, that's one of the main issues that I feel for this area that we need to try to address that and make sure we keep constant pressure on our state and federal legislators to get that project completed. Councilmember Steinke, I'll see you later.
Thank you. Yeah, all of you, I'm sure, have studied the story of the origination of Cape Coral and the Rosen brothers and whatnot. And you know, while Councilmember Hayden spoke of us being built out and having 400,000 people here one day, well, to some degree, the city is already sold out. And the Rosen brothers came, and what we have is what's known as a pre-platted community. And the trouble is that when you first do that, which is going back now about 60 years ago, and don't stick around to implement it, all of the challenges of implementing that vision of this pre-platting, challenges come along that have to be dealt with. And so many of these homes and the growth that you speak of in your question, you know, the population growth that we have here, imagine yourself in a position where you bought a property down here, whether it was from the Rosens or any of the subsequent sellers of property here, and now you're ready to retire and you come down and you're told you're not allowed to build your retirement home when that was your plan. And so you've heard it mentioned a couple times about it requiring a balance. And so how do you balance the desire of those people to come and follow through on their plan with the property that they bought here in our city to retire here, with the problems that we find today with infrastructure and where will there be a Publix, and hey, we need a hair salon here, and how come we can't have any of these commercial buildings? Well, one of the things that this council has been committed to is maintaining the commercial property that we have to support the population that will come, and where that commercial property has not been developed yet, but that's where that Publix can go, that's where the salon can go, that's where the attorney can go, that's where the doctors can go. And so now it's a matter of getting the water and sewer, the utilities, the infrastructure there to allow that to happen and to grow smart. And so to the mayor's point about the water, if you want to take a look at a pretty neat project, I kind of consider it one of the eighth wonders of the world, if you will, is the C-43 reservoir. And it's being put in place to help with the issue of the discharges from Lake Okeechobee. Many people don't know about it. It's an incredible feat that's going on basically just outside of the lake before the water can hit the Caloosahatchee River to come to us, so that when they have to make those releases, it actually exits the water into basically a 6 square mile reservoir rather than sending it downriver to us. And that is supposed to be completed in October of this year. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. If you want to take a look at a pretty neat solution to that water problem that we have with water coming down the river, the C-43 canal, just like the Caloosahatchee Connect program, bringing water that was being discharged into the river from Fort Myers that actually, if you will, exacerbated the whole blue-green algae problem by feeding it. Now we've repurposed that water, and through an interlocal agreement where cities work together to solve common problems, it gave Fort Myers something to do with that water rather than release it into the river and send it to us, where we could recondition the water and use it in our freshwater canal systems to help with our irrigation issues. So there's a lot of joint efforts that are in place right now that we haven't quite seen the effects of. So I would also agree with Councilmember Hayden in that I expect it to be better as well. And there's a number of things that are in play right now that we just haven't seen the effect of yet that we're about to see. I would say probably in the next 12 to 24 months that I think that will make a marked difference. Thanks.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed with the growth in our city is the increase of litter. From the additional cars and traffic, I see people that get rid of their fast food trash and things like that and discard it out the window. So we have to, with having more of that growth coming, that problem is going to get worse. So we have to learn how to tackle that problem, whether how we can catch these individuals and maybe increase penalties. But that's going to be a challenge as well, because it's very difficult to catch people doing that, but it's obviously happening. We see it throughout the city. So that trash also hurts our community as well. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other lights on, any questions from Youth Council?
Okay, so this isn't a question, but just a comment about the entire category of environment that we decided to include is 2 points. I think I can speak for the Youth Council in that it is so refreshing to see that our city leadership does truly care about the environment of our city, because it's easy to overlook with all your responsibilities. I'm sure that you have to overlook things like the environment, like the fast food litter that's being thrown into the median and the color of our water and things like that. But it is very refreshing to see that you care for our environment. And going on to that, as a youth council, we put it as one of our goals is the beautification of our city, which is something that I thought, and I'm sure some of our members have also thought, going into including the category of environment into our discussion today, is that with the pollution in our waterways, with the pollution in our roads, it affects how our city appears to the tourists, to our snowbirds, to the people that are visiting. That we see it all the time, that people come, they visit for a week, and they buy a house right away because they just love it here so much. And that's wonderful. But when you see trash on the roads, that's going to, down the line, that's going to affect our economy. That's going to affect our small businesses who do survive on the profits that they get from those tourists. So those were my concerns, and I'm sure the concerns of some of our members when we included environment, that yes, we do care about the waterways, we care about the pollution, but going into that, our city and how it appears to the people that aren't from here. Thank you.
Just to reiterate what Member Garcia was saying, once again, thank you for taking, immense initiative on this issue. So my question is, as a follow-up to kind of this current discussion, is the federal or state government doing anything to help you all with this initiative to try and improve Cape Coral's environment?
Well, I know our state and our federal legislators actively try to get funding for all the projects. C-43 is just one of those projects. But still, the monies that we do get, because they already have a plan in place, until they get enough funding, I mean, I know at one time we used to get about $750 million from the federal government. The last amount of money that I heard that we were getting here at the state was about $300,000. So it's a substantially less amount of money that we were getting from the federal government to the state level in order to do these type of projects. Over the years, it's been up and down. Some years we get more, some years we get less. I think one of the things that we need to try to do, because we can't just do this at the state level, we're going to need the assistance of the federal funding. We need to have some consistency in that funding opportunity each and every year so we can keep the project moving forward. We can only go as fast as the money, that allocation of money that have been given. So I think, could we do better? Absolutely. As a state and the federal government, I think we have to just make sure that we continue to advocate to get those federal dollars in order to get these projects moving forward. I will say that I think, you know, the governor that we have now, the environment's extremely important to him, and I know that, you know, he tries to match those dollars that we get from the federal government, but honestly, we just need the federal government to step up to the plate on a consistent basis. Councilmember Stunkey.
Yeah, for sure, the consistency has to be there because a lot of these projects, they take years to complete. And so federal and state funding, certainly as we go through different election cycles and those people that are put in place, you know, as you become qualified to vote, you know, one of the things you definitely want to find out about candidates is how they feel about these types of things, because they're the ones that are going to be voting. And so when you consider the appropriations that are made and where the priorities lie and where the money goes, we've been fortunate, you know, going all the way back when, you know, when we had our event in 18, the East Coast, the water was sent out to the St. Lucie Inlet in 17, and they had the exact same effect that we did in 18, and that made its way all the way to the president's desk, and at the time the president in the next allocation cycle allocated a very, very large sum of money toward water quality projects in coordination with South Florida Water Management. So certainly we as voters can help make sure that that consistency is there with the funding and the priorities that are placed on those allocations of dollars as we go down the road, because nothing worse than getting a project started and having to stop it because it gets defunded because of a change of thought process or a change of priority somewhere in that voting chain. So always, you know, as you become voters and as you would influence those people that are voters, you know, make sure that they understand how important it is, not just on single issue basis, but just in this topic. How do they feel about the environment, and where is it in their priority level? That how will they vote, and where will they allocate those dollars? Because they take many years to complete. It's not just a one and done type of a deal in most cases. Thanks.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that you guys care about our appearance and our city's cleanliness, because it's our image, you know? It's what people think about us when they come here, you know? And we want to build a magnet of success, you know? And our magnet's got to look good. So I want you to know that we're always looking at ways of combating these problems that we're talking about. I just had a meeting with our city manager. Maybe he would like to say something, where we talked about, I saw these cool baskets that are at the end of canals that catch trash by themselves, that they're set up in areas where you see the trash accumulate in the canals. And I just had a conversation with the city manager about that. So I wanted you to know we're always looking for ways to combat these problems, that we're not ignoring them. But it's nice knowing that you guys care too. And if you ever have any ideas, you know, let us know. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayden.
Thanks, Mayor. And we didn't even discuss, we talked funding, we haven't even discussed permits and what we face each day when we're trying to secure permits for various things with Army Corps and DEP, and how it could hold up important environmental projects for us. So that's a whole different area. But, you know, you talked about it being refreshing to hear it from us, but do you think your age group cares about the environment as much as, you know, we put a focus on it? Is Is it on your radar? Is it a priority? And I'll let Mr. Feichthaler, since you asked the question, I'll ask, what do you see out there among conversations that you might have with your peers?
All right. Well, I think for a lot of my peers, the environment is a very, very major issue. Definitely one of the most major. I can't really think of any that are higher prioritized among my peers. All of us really think that there's something that we have to do to stop climate change, or at least slow it down, and preserve more areas, because a lot of people aren't trying to do that. So really a lot of my peers just want preservation to continue, and for regulation of fossil fuels and the like.
Go ahead, sir.
Just to, concur with that statement, I could think of other issues that are on the minds of people, our age, but environment is probably top three, because we've seen the destruction that's been done to our environment worldwide. And just to add, it's not just the responsibility of Cape Coral, it's the responsibility of Lee County, the state of Florida, the U.S., and every single country in the world, because we have some countries with populations greater than ours that aren't doing their part to help the environment. They're not putting as much effort or as much legislation, other countries, into ensuring that waste is managed and ensuring that, their carbon footprint isn't managed. So I think that, yes, Cape Coral can do what it can do, but it's the part of every single person, on the face of the earth to try and help our environment, because eventually, our environment, it's running out, and we need to do something quickly. And I think that the actions of Cape Coral, just doing what they can do, is really putting a foot in the door of fighting this crisis.
Any other discussion from Youth Council? Okay, and seeing no other lights on from City Council, why don't we go into the third and final question for the environment?
Thank you, sir. I will pass on the last question to Member Anchetta. Thank you.
So this question is, are the current efforts to protect wildlife, such as our burrowing owls, effective? If not, what modifications can be made, both by local citizens and our city government, to better preserve endangered species?
Good evening again, Justin Heller, Senior Planner. Some good news. We are seeing positive things with our protected species. In particular, burrowing owls. The protection efforts appear to be working, so we have quite a large population here, the largest in the state. And I've been here about 7 years, and we've seen in that time the population steadily increasing, despite this huge surge in development. One of the things I'm noticing is they're becoming more adaptive to the human-altered ecosystems, and you're seeing them more and more each year show up in people's front yards, so improved properties. And on an average year, I'd say I get about 200 or so new burrows, and this year alone, we're already on pace to blow right past that. I've already gotten over 150 new burrows, and at least half of those are on improved properties, so in people's front yards. So they are adapting. Same can go for the bald eagle populations here. We have an average of about 10 breeding pairs in the city. They took a pretty good hit with Hurricane Ian. We lost all the nests and most of the nest trees, but they're adapting. Now about half of our eagles have moved on to cell towers. But they're on pace this year to have a pretty good nesting season. And gopher tortoises. So they're the ones that are, I'd probably say, have been in more of a downward trend. This is mainly due to habitat loss, and they're just not as good at adapting to the human-altered environments. So many of our tortoises are also during the construction process. If a house comes in, there's tortoises. You can protect them on site if you have space, or you can relocate them off site to a mitigation bank. And we see a lot of these tortoises being moved outside of the county to these basically protected mitigation banks elsewhere in the state. So we're seeing an exodus of our protected species outside of our city. But we do have protection measures in place. We have local city ordinances in addition to our state regulations. So we have protection requirements adjacent to construction where the contractors are required to put buffers in. Tortoises have a 25-foot buffer requirement. Burrowing owls, it's seasonal, so non-nesting season is 10 feet. And we're currently in nesting season, so that increases to 33 feet, where you can't do any work inside that buffer. And then with the bald eagles, it's an 1,100-foot buffer from the nest, and we limit heavy construction activities in that zone during the nesting season. But I'd say overall, I would say most of our protection efforts seem to be pretty effective. As far as moving forward, I think, especially for gopher tortoises, I think the key would be to preserve more land for them, since they don't do well in improved habitats like the owls and eagles. More parks, more open space, more preserves, and just getting land in the city, where they can coexist with us into the future. So. I know FWC has a grant right now that we're working with them on for buying land for owl preservation. Hopefully in the future, they will also be offering that same kind of program for obtaining some habitat for the gopher tortoises as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Councilmember Carr? Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. And the numbers, the trending numbers are good to hear, so thank you for that. I'd like to just say, I think the folks at the Friends of Wildlife that we have the opportunity to work with and here in Cape Coral has made a huge impact on this issue, and is continually watching throughout the city every single day. I see them all the time in my neighborhood, and I think that their enthusiasm and commitment to this issue with regard to the burrowing owls and tortoises has made a huge difference in our city, and I think it's going to continue to do that. They bring a lot of light to the habitats and the rules required. They stake them off, and these are all things not done by the city. If they see an issue, they call it in, both to the state and to the city, to deal with it, and they get a great response, I think, and that helps maintain the requirements for the contractors at the construction sites. But I think they're a big part of our success. So it's not just the city's efforts. I think it's the efforts of our Friends of Wildlife organization in the city that help us keep them all safe.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, if you look at the one grant that was mentioned, if I recall correctly, that grant could be up to, through Florida Fish and Wildlife, up to $900,000. So that's a substantial amount of money that we can use. Our city's pretty unique with the burrowing owls. We have more burrowing owls than anywhere else. So for them, and that was the legwork of the Florida Fish, or not Florida Fish and Wildlife, but that was the legwork of the Friends of Wildlife and all the advocation that they did in order to get that grant. We had to apply for it here at the city, but it was their legwork is the reason why we were able to get that particular grant. We've also allocated some other funding to the Friends of Wildlife to help them in their effort. I believe this council, it was $100,000, if I recall correctly, that we had given to that particular organization for their efforts. So I think it's a partnership here in our city and with that particular organization that the things that they're doing for the gopher tortoises and the owls and the wildlife in general. They're advocates, as Councilmember Carr said. They're out there every day and visiting a lot of sites, making sure that they're marked, making sure they stay marked, and making sure that they're mapped. And it helps us here at the city because when you have a particular lot that has a nest, either a gopher tortoise or a burning owl nest, it is documented so that when we go to pull a permit, it's flagged. So that basically tells our staff we have to make sure that we have some type of mitigation in place. When you take a look at the bald eagle, our restriction here in the city is more stringent than the federal requirement as far as the distance. So we've taken that extra step. So I think we do a fairly good job to find that balance between the wildlife and the explosive growth of our city. And I think we'll continue to do that. Any other discussion on this particular question? Good. Councilmember Shipp.
The only thing I want to add is I think our wildlife people do a fantastic job, so I don't want to repeat what was already said. But we saw a map in one of our past meetings that showed the majority of the owl population is where the people are. So they are adapting, but I think one educating piece that we can put out there is to let people know that if you do have an owl family living in your yard, that it's an asset because it controls the rodents. So it's a way of keeping your property clean from any pest. So I think we need to let the public know that, some people say, oh, it's going to make a hole in my yard. I think they need to look at the importance of how it cleans our city. They're an asset to have on our property. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments on this topic, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the urban growth in Cape Coral. And I will turn that over to the chair.
Thank you, sir. Opening our category of urban growth will be with the first question with Member Dupeyron.
Thank you. Okay. So what are some notable upcoming projects that you guys have that are intended to address the increasing traffic here in Cape Coral?
I think one of the most important things that we are doing now is we're developing a strategic transportation master plan for the future. I will say that, I've been here since 2017 and we'd never had that discussion. So about a year ago, we started having that discussion. We've actually kind of crafted into a multimodal type approach. So we hopefully will get, by the end of the year, we'll have a transportation master plan. I think it's always important to have a plan in place. You always need to know where you're trying to head to. And once you know that, you can decide how you're going to get there. So I think that's extremely important, and we've taken it upon ourselves to do that. As we know, we have the new construction at Cape Coral Bridge. It's going to be 6 lanes, 3 in each direction. I've had several discussions with the county commissioners. As soon as that project is moving forward, which will be here soon, then we're going to take a look at Midpoint Bridge. We know that bridge needs to be 3 lanes in each direction. We'll look at how we can expand that particular bridge. The Cape Coral Bridge, I believe the westbound span is the one that needs to be replaced. But we decided to do all 6 lanes, so it'll be a completely new bridge. And we'll take a look at how we can expand Midpoint after that. As we all have said here tonight, with the explosive growth, I think we need to do that. The Transportation Master Plan will tell us exactly what roadways need to be expanded upon. We've already taken our own initiative with the Pine Island Road. I don't know if you know, but when you do and that's a state road, anytime you do an expansion on that, you have to do what's called a PD&E study, planning, design, and engineering. And that particular project was several years from now to even be discussed. We took it upon ourselves where we funded the PD&E study ourselves over a 2-year budget cycle of $4.5 million. And that PD&E study will start in July. And it's usually about a 2-year study because we know the need for that particular roadway to be expanded is already here. And that was the only way that we could make sure that we moved that project up. 5 of us here on the counselor on the Metropolitan Planning Organization Board, where we have those discussions of transportation projects throughout all of Lee County. And so we advocate for the projects not only in Lee, but for the city of Cape Coral. And we have advocated and made Pine Island Road our priority. As we move forward with this new transportation master plan, we'll identify what our priorities are in the future, and I'm sure address those not as a council, but also on the Metropolitan Planning Organization Board that we all serve on. So I'll leave it for any other comments. Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, we had a discussion a few weeks ago about there's funding available for roundabouts, more roundabouts in the city. So we prioritized several intersections that could help improve traffic flow with those. A new signal just went online at Del Prado Extension and De Navarro to help improve safety and traffic in that area. The Transportation Master Plan will include multimodal projects for different types of walking, cycling, to help possibly lighten congestion on the road when there's more opportunities for people to walk or to use their bicycles. So there's several things in place. We're always going to have to deal with traffic in Cape Coral, but how we mitigate that moving forward, and especially up north, will be important. Thanks.
One other thing I forgot to mention too, that is a priority for us, is the completion of Burnt Store Road all the way up through Charlotte County. We still have another segment to do. We've been advocating to move that particular project forward. We've recently had a joint MPO meeting with Charlotte and Lee counties, where a couple of us attended. So that's a priority on both sides, Charlotte County and Lee County. So we want to make sure we get the funding in place so we can go ahead and get that project. That's an evacuation route that we use here in our city, not only our city, but Pine Island residents and Matlacha residents as well. And we're also looking at an additional evacuation route on the east side of the city, possibly Del Prado North Extension that goes up towards 75. I know FDOT now is doing a study for ingress egress on the Route 75 up in that area near, I believe it's State Road 31. Is that what it is?
Slater Road.
Yep. And so we're going to see if the data shows that there's a need for another ingress egress into Route 75, and maybe we can incorporate an additional evacuation route with Del Prado North Extension. So we're working on that as well moving forward. That's a priority for me, the evacuation routes, getting Pine Island Road Extension, our bridges, and then finishing our transportation master plan so we can see what our locally here in the city, what we need to do as a local government with our roadways. One example could be widen Chiquita to 3 lanes versus the 2. We already have Del Prado on the east side of the city. It was always slated that Chiquita would eventually be 3 lanes in each direction on the west side of the city. So they're just some of the projects that we're looking at. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you guys will witness more than I will is the generational differences of using an automobile. For instance, I'll give you a funny story. A couple years ago, I had to drive around. I had a list of things I had to buy on a Saturday, and I brought my 8-year-old daughter with me, and I drove around the entire day to all these different stores in Cape Coral, and they didn't have what I wanted, and I drove to Fort Myers, and the whole time my daughter, I had to keep telling her, don't worry, when Daddy's done getting everything on the list, I'm going to take you to do what you want to do. I just have to get these items. And then 3/4 through the day, my daughter had her iPad on her lap, and she said, Dad, I could have ordered everything you're looking for and had it delivered to the house. So they're one of the big generational differences, where you guys, your generation, is going to drive a lot less than people in my generation because of new technologies, and it's habit. And I was just guilty of it. Recently, I did a remodeling job at my house, but this time I sat down and I ordered everything. So I wasn't a cause of traffic in Cape Coral for this project because I had everything delivered to the house and I wasn't driving all over the place. But I think with technology advances, new technologies coming out, people in your age group moving up, more of you moving up and becoming the workforce and less of us on the roads, I think we're going to see a big difference. Because your generation, I think, will do a lot less automobile driving. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Councilmember Shepherd, I'll help you get the Amazon app on your phone when we're done tonight. A couple things, you know, a lot of times traffic is caused because people can't get off the road. And part of that has to do with parking. And so, yes, you know, certainly in the CRA area, we've had issues with parking, and we're addressing those as well. So to allow people that when they get to their destination to not have to search for a place to park their car. Parking is one of the issues that we're dealing with as well. And then, you know, as it relates to multimodal, if with the study that we had done, it said people are typically willing to walk about 2 blocks from where they park, but then to have other modes of transportation that don't require the automobile to allow them to go short distances, 5 blocks, 8 blocks. Certainly our generation is using Uber and Lyft, you know, more than before, ride share, things like that. So all those different components I think will be in play. And the last is you know, the speed with which we can do things. Certainly we have to be very predictive as far as we can, because it takes a long while. Just, you know, a traffic light, what would seem like, how simple is that? Just go put a pole up and have, you know, red, yellow, and green, make it easy. Well, typically the engineering required around where it's placed, the type of machinery that's going to be required for it, takes about a year. So when you identify, okay, we need a traffic control device at this intersection, it's not going to be a year before there's anything there that's going to be effective. So a lot of this has to be, you know, dealt with in advance, you know, I've thought and will continue to think and talk about until something happens with it. Is there's some places where we need overpasses, so that we don't need an intersection, so traffic can keep flowing. Well, the trouble is that, and every one of you could probably identify an intersection where you think a flyover would be a great place to have that flyover. Well, if we were to make the decision tomorrow morning to have a flyover there, it'd probably be 20 years before a car goes over it. So a lot of these things take a lot of time. So the efforts that we'll put in and future councils put in, it all kind of has to line up, and everyone has to keep the ball rolling for those types of things. And I think there's some great ones that are in place right now with Pine Island Road Corridor, Burnstow Road Corridor, the bridges. So I think people are thinking, you know, in advance. I think we're on the right track. Thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to bring up something. I remembered back in 2022 I was hearing about this, but in 2021 the federal government enacted they called it a bipartisan infrastructure law that invested $550 billion in local infrastructure from the years 2022 to 2026. Was Cape Coral, or to your knowledge, able to enjoy any of those federal dollars?
That'd probably be an answer for staff. I can't recall any federal dollars that we had received. I know we had some federal dollars. We'll come back to that question when the city manager returns. He just walked out.
I agree.
I didn't want to put the fire chief on the spot. So we'll come back to that. Yes, ma'am.
So with like all the like road expansion, things like that, do you guys think it's possible for Cape Coral to like in the future kind of become more of a walkable city, since there's so much traffic? Do you think it's still possible to kind of consolidate the traffic but also make sure that people can walk around and become more of a like walkable city.
Yeah, that's one of the things, our multimodal project that we're working on now, because there's also some other federal, or not federal, but some other funding mechanisms that the state legislation has just passed as far as impact fees too, that we can change, where we can use some of those impact fees on projects for like sidewalks and pedestrian traffic, bicycle paths, those sorts of things. So since that has changed, that's one of the things that we're doing in our transportation master plan. We'll be addressing, just because you're trying to get from point A to point B, that doesn't mean it has to be in a vehicle. And that's some of the things that we're developing in our plan. And Mr. City Manager, since you're back, we had a question, and I'll let him ask it again.
So, I was remembering this from, I heard about it in 2022. In 2021, the federal government enacted what they call our partisan infrastructure law that invested just near $600 billion in local infrastructure from fiscal years 22 to 26. Was it Cape Coral able to enjoy any of those federal dollars, to your knowledge?
I know we submitted some projects specifically for transportation initiatives, and I don't think we were awarded any of those. Matt, you know what?
So when the United States Congress actually approves that type of funding, it usually takes a couple years for the program to be developed by the agencies, usually up to 3, 4, 5 years. So a lot of these new programs have just started. We've been submitting applications for each of these programs, especially through the Department of Transportation. We've submitted multiple grants under multiple programs for the Department of Transportation. It's pretty difficult. There's such a huge need for infrastructure funding within the United States. These programs are really, really competitive across the entire country. And the agencies on the federal level have really developed some very, very specific criteria with low and moderate income areas that need to be benefited, certain ages of infrastructure that are eligible for these types of improvements. So typically what you'll see is the first couple years of the program, the extremely competitive, ready to go, shovel-ready projects for extremely aged infrastructure that are in critical need in low-income areas typically are funded, but we're continuing to apply for the programs. Usually they're up to 5, up to 10 years of opportunities, and so the city will continue to apply for those funds. I know that we're working on applications right now under a US DOT program.
Okay. Any other questions on that question? Any other comments? All right, let's move on to, I believe, the second question. I'll turn it over to the chair.
Thank you, sir. I will pass this question on to Member Whittish.
Thank you. So what are your recommendations for crafting further our youth council's strategic plan to better accommodate the rapid urban growth occurring in Cape Coral? So currently, our strategic initiatives plan does address urban growth in Cape Coral. It addresses the need for more parks. It addresses the need, just generally for the increased population of youth. But as people who have been involved in city government for a long time, what are your recommendations to us as a youth council, what we can do to help contribute to a higher quality of life with this urban growth in our city?
Councilmember Hayden.
Christian, I'm going to switch this one around a little bit. First off, how many of you, just show of hands, have read our strategic plan? The city strategic plan, how many of you have read it? Remember my 50-year I think it's been a while since you've been on a youth council, so. And in the interest of fair play, how many up here on council have read the youth council's strategic plan? Okay. So Christian and anybody else on youth council, why don't you detail a little bit for us what's in your strategic plan, why you developed it, and how it addresses your question, rather than since most of council isn't aware of what's really a tremendous plan that you all worked on last year, and I will encourage my colleagues to read it.
So in our strategic plan, we do address several issues other than just urban growth. I'm sure you saw in our video, we mentioned some of our strategic plan, which included, we call them meetups, right? So this is just, our strategic plan is centered not only around youth, but in our strategic plan, I think I'm remembering the words for it. I know Chair Garcia is bringing it up. But we address that we want to ensure that the urban growth is benefited through not only meetups, but through the fundraising that we're doing, so that youth can learn to not only appreciate Cape Coral, but are able to afford it, are able to come back to Cape Coral after their education to further benefit the city in their careers. So the Cape Coral, there it is, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so for example, in our opportunities section, having college satellite campuses, so that means ensuring that more higher education opportunities are coming to our city, considering that we're intended to have 400,000 residents in the coming years. That's also going to mean way more kids. This is no longer, as I'm sure it's been tossed around, this is no longer Cape Coma, right, as it was previously called. It's a growing and it's a vibrant city. We also want to see in the future having more beach access. The Cape Coral Yacht Club was destroyed, and that all during Hurricane Ian, and that had one of our only beach access. So we're looking at ways to try and do projects that are going to benefit. How we can bring those things back so that youth can benefit. We're also looking at bringing back entertainment. I know J.C. Park, for example, had a band shell, right, that was in the original design. How are we going to, as a youth council, if that project were to get implemented, how are we going to ensure that that band shell is not only we're having participation, but we're able to bring more awareness to our fellow youth regarding those opportunities. Chair Garcia, would you like to touch on some portions of the strategic plan?
Right. All right, so we have the rest let's start from the beginning. So we outlined our strengths and we outlined our weaknesses. So I'll go over our strengths first. So our strengths is our environment and our climate. And we live in Southwest Florida. It's beautiful here. I love it here. I'm sure you guys love it here too. And we get a lot of tourists that come here. They fuel our economy, they fuel our small businesses like I mentioned previously. Our population growth, again, piggybacking off of that, it allows our economy to grow, it helps our small businesses, and it attracts more industry and more people to live here. Our geographical size, bigger population, we, as I'm sure you know, we are one of the largest cities. It says here that we are the second largest between us and Tampa. We are the largest center of population between Tampa and Miami. So obviously that brings upon, like I mentioned before, lots of economy, lots of people moving in here, a more diverse community as well. We have a very good quality of life here. We have a large elderly population here, but we do take care of them very, very well. And our good public safety and police and fire department.
He's back here.
Have done an outstanding job to keep our city safe and our citizens safe as well.
For some of our weaknesses, we have the unplanned growth without the insufficient infrastructure. So we kind of touched upon that when we were talking about the traffic issues and things like that. So the need that we have for infrastructure, especially since I think someone said it that Cape Coral is one of the fastest growing cities in Florida. And then another one is not a lot of opportunities for K-12 education, like post K-12 education opportunities within. So within the city itself, obviously we have some universities and FSU or FSW and then FGCU as well. Another thing kind of touching upon infrastructure again is the healthcare. So I know we have a lot of urgent care centers that were recently built, but we only have one hospital here in Cape Coral, which is Cape Coral Hospital. So that's kind of another weakness that we would need to tackle. Also within jobs, so employment, infrastructure. Another thing is we kind of are going to touch upon this later today, but kind of the lack of entertainment maybe for youth. I know there are a lot of events hosted, but maybe tailoring those events more youth oriented, especially since a lot of people are moving to Cape Coral. It's more I think the demographic is kind of shifting a little bit, so kind of focusing more events on our youth and stuff like that. Also, what we talk about, transportation and Cape Coral being a walkable city, so being able to walk around. I know downtown Cape Coral is kind of very accessible, so I know that's kind of a very walkable part of town, but also kind of connecting that to like other regions of Cape Coral as well. And then also, this is not just Cape Coral, but also Florida and then the United States as a whole, but the lack of affordable housing. I know it's very difficult right now, and especially with like salary changes, that's a very big issue that we're having. And then also kind of trying to increase the community connectiveness between the city government and then the citizens. So making sure that that relationship is there, and then kind of that everyone is constantly giving their input and making sure that there's a connection there.
And then next, Member Whittish did touch on our opportunities, but for our threats, we do have weather as one of our threats, and many hurricanes that result in huge expenses that set us back months and possibly even years, and that sets us back on the many plans that we have for our infrastructure and the many things that we have going on. It sets us back. Also, we have unplanned growth, which has been like an overall theme tonight, the exponential growth that we've had in our city, and it's a big project that it would take a lot to tackle. The next one is overcapacity with healthcare facilities. Since we do only have one hospital here, it's something we could work on, and that's something that we all need to bring awareness to. Next is our environment and the degrading environment due to increased pollution, and we need to reinvest in stronger recycling systems and reusable energy. Here and in Fort Myers, we have our facilities like the Covanta, I think it's called, the facility that creates energy through our waste, but it's something that we need to reinvest in. And then next is our water scarcity. We do go through a dry season, and it's a big threat for Cape Coral, especially for our environment and our marine ecosystems. And that's our threats for Cape Coral.
Okay, thank you. I got a few lights on here. Councilmember Carr?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to compliment you on your SWOT analysis. I did read it, and I thought it was excellent. I think one of the big things for you to do as a suggestion is to make sure you're monitoring it regularly. I know you have different folks on your board every year, so it's important that everyone is up to speed on it. Talk about it a lot and make sure you're updating it as needed. I think that's critically important to its success and for you to move it forward. I think another big thing that you could do as a group is to make sure that your voice is heard. And what I mean by that is we have opportunity here at each council meeting for public input. I don't know that I've seen you, I've only been here for a short time, but over the years, I don't know how many times you have come and actually voiced the opinion of the board. If you can come to some consensus on issues that are relevant to you, and everything's relevant to you, right, based on your analysis overall. So I think your opinion would be valued, certainly by our group, to listen about what the youth believes about certain topics and weigh in on those things. As a group, your voice will be heard much better that way if you actually show up and say it out loud for everyone to hear. So you did say the demographic is changing. We are getting younger as a city. Maybe not to the extent that you are, but your opinions matter. And I think it's important that if you can take that opinion and bring it forward as much as possible when you feel it appropriate. So those are the two recommendations I would give you on your plan.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing that I picked up on, and my guess is that all of you probably travel a little bit and you have friends in places other than Cape Coral. And when you think about those youth-oriented events, if you will, the things that you believe the youth would like to participate in here in our city, maybe if you have an example of something that you've attended in another city that drew a great number of youth to it and that enjoy it. We were just investing very, very large dollars in our Parks and Rec system, as you know, with rejuvenating some of the older parks, opening some new parks that are there. And so maybe you might want to consider actually building something that you'd like to present that could be evaluated for an annual youth-oriented event that we would do on an annual basis. We have numbers of annual events that we do, but I got to agree with you, they're geared more toward adults. They're not geared toward our student population. We've got an exciting announcement that's going to be made here pretty soon. Tune in. Yeah, if it's not tomorrow, it'll probably be the next regular council meeting that we have. I think that will be very attractive to the youth. We've got a fantastic racket club that's going to be opening there at Lakes Park. And so maybe take something you found somewhere else. You don't always have to recreate the wheel. So in your strategic plan, maybe it would be to add 2 youth-oriented programs to the city's strategic plan, if you would. And then we could take a look at presenting those to Parks and Rec and city staff, and the council could come to a decision on making those annual events that are geared more toward the youth of our area. That's what I would recommend.
Okay. Any other discussion on this question? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the last question under urban growth, and I'll turn it over to the chair.
Thank you, sir. I will take this question. Last question to wrap up the urban growth category is, how do you feel as city council members about our city shifting from a more family-orientated retirement city to a more urban area as residents and citizens versus the members of the city council? So just a little bit of background about me. I was born in Miami, huge city, as you know. And my family moved here back in 2011. And the main reason that they moved here was the economy crash, but it was also to raise a family. So they saw Cape Coral, they saw that it was affordable housing. But they saw it as a city that you could raise a very good family here. And they put me in the charter school system, much like Member Anchetta. I've been in the charter school system since kindergarten. And that was the main appeal for Cape Coral back in 2011, was that it was a very family-oriented city. But now as a junior, I'm in high school, been here over a decade now, I've seen it change more into an urban city. We've talked about demographic shifts, that we are getting younger people here, that our city is urbanizing. How do you feel about that, as, like the question states, as citizens of this city, but versus as council members?
I guess I'll take the question first. For me, and I've said this many times when I go out and speak in public, is if you look back over the last 50 years of our city, we kind of morphed into where we are today. And, our city was developed originally to be that bedroom retirement community. And as the years went by, our city progressively each year changed. I think that's so important, why we need to have a good strategic plan in place today, that transportation master plan we talked about, really to plan for the next 50 years, for the future. As you had mentioned, the demographics are, families are moving here, not retired, a retired couple. There's men and women that are married, want to raise a family here. They want to come here and begin a life and raise children. And I think that, for me personally, that's what I look at when I'm sitting on the dais, is planning for the future. And when you do that, and I'm sure you've watched some of our council meetings over the last year, sometimes with some individuals in the community, that's not what they want. They moved here for something that was 20 years ago. And unfortunately, we've morphed into where we are today. We're going to change whether we want to or not. So we have to make sure that we keep up with that change, plan for the future. I'm always looking to the future. We can't change what we did last year or 10 years ago. We can learn from it, but we can surely change what we're going to do the next 10, 20, and 30 years. So I think that this council has been pretty progressive, looking to the future, and making sure that we try to adopt policies and regulations moving forward for that change that we know is coming. We're, like you had mentioned, we're urbanizing. Our city it's an urban city. Whether you want it to be or not, it's here. And I think it's a disservice to our community if we don't recognize that and make sure we plan for the future. So that's what I do personally. I'm looking for the future. So when we see things when I see things come across my desk, the first question I ask myself is, how can this help our community 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? You know, one of the things we've been talking about here recently, the utilities and the impact fees. We know we have to build another North RO plant, wastewater plant. And in order to do that, there has to be a funding mechanism. So it's not a want, it's a need. It's here now that we have to get that built for our utility expansion projects. You know, that we've gotten a pretty aggressive plan over the next 25 years to get water and sewer to every lot and every household here in the city. So sometimes you got to make those hard decisions, and sometimes it's not going to be favorable to some people in the community. But if I think, for me, if it's going to help our community in the future, I'll make those hard decisions today. So residents 10, 20, and 30 years from now will be able to benefit from the decisions that we make here today. So that's where I'm at. You know, on this particular topic, sometimes you have to make those hard decisions, and sometimes it's not favorable. But if it's in the best interest of the community as a whole, they're the decisions that you have to make. So with that, let's see, who's next? Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. I see the question, it's two parts, right? Personal and professional. And personally, I mean, some of the, you know, it's nice to be able to go to a restaurant in Cape Coral and not have to go to Fort Myers. I've been here over 30 years, raised 2 children here, and having the resources and amenities here in the city of Cape Coral, it makes it much more convenient and less expensive in many ways. You don't have to go elsewhere to get what you want to do with your family. So from a personal perspective, it's nice not to have to cross the bridge, right? You know, when I first moved here, there was really only a couple of restaurants that had any draw. Iguana is still here. I remember back in the old days, that was the place to go. Cinco de Mayo was the best party in Lee County, in Big John's parking lot. And that's changed over the years, right? But the restaurant has succeeded. We can't say that about a lot of restaurants in the Cape, but as we move forward, I think having the amenities to keep people on this side of the river is important, and to service the communities, the families that come from other parts of the state and other parts of the country. People do come here with different expectations, and that's the difficult part for us as council members, is to weigh it all out and look to the future. But looking at the direct impact on neighbors of these projects that are going in, we have to consider those factors as well, and make sure that we contemplate the decisions before we make them. And I think that's what we all do on a regular basis, is we try to look at all sides of an issue, look at the negative and positive impacts on the community, working from that center point outward, right? Some things are going to affect some more than others on some of these developments, and you have to weigh it out. And it's a very difficult thing to do. You're never going to make every single person happy with those decisions. When the Midpoint Bridge went in, for example, I mean, I remember those days on both sides of the river. I worked in Fort Myers, lived in Cape Coral, like many people did, still do. And I remember the acquisition of property was a big deal, because where's it going to go, right? You have to find the best place from an engineering perspective, I'm sure, was the first thing to look at. Then its impact. All right, whose house is going to get torn down when we put this bridge in? And many of them did. They got acquired through eminent domain on both sides of the river. But it was inevitable. It had to happen, right? So decisions are difficult from the positions that we're in here. And you have to take the personal side out of it to a degree. But we're representatives of the community. And we should be able to represent our constituency based on our personal belief systems, right? And personal understanding of needs of others. So I think it all plays into the same thing. But the decisions about what we do when you're on the dais are different and more impactful. So you consider more with those decisions and take the personal piece out. Personal is easy. You pick which restaurant you go to the restaurant. But when you're looking at where the restaurant goes as a decision maker up here, it's a different decision, right? So there's more to it. And that's kind of how I look at it from the question that you asked on both sides of personal and professional application. Thanks.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I don't think many people really realize how different we are. You know, there's been some talk about, you know, how big we are, being the largest population between Tampa and Miami, and second largest in the state and whatnot, but it goes well beyond that. You know, there's 411 municipalities in the state of Florida, and the average population is 7,000 people. So as we currently sit at around 220,000 people, that in and of itself is just a challenge. So then where do they live? Where do they recreate? Where do they eat? How do they get in and out of the city? Well, how different we are really is because of the fact that we're a Cape and how we develop with water on three sides of us. Very, very different than most cities through the state and across the country. Where most people have moved to us from, their city was pretty typical. There was a centroplex, and that's why you have the term urban and suburban, is the city started from a centroplex, and as it grew, it got thicker and thicker in the center, and it started growing out. And so the center was that urban, and then as you moved out, you became suburban. And the arteries in and out of that centroplex typically went out like spokes on a wheel. And that's how you moved your utilities out. That's where, if you wanted a less populated area, you kind of moved out. Well, the wacky thing is, in the growth of our city, if you wanted to have a little bit more space, what you did is you moved east of Coronado, or I'm sorry, west of Coronado, from the yacht club area, and as everything got populated up the coast, well, I want to move in to have a little more space and not be so populated. And so as our city grew, it kind of grew from the outside in, with basically at one time just one way in and out, right? The South Bridge, unless you came over Hancock Bridge Parkway. And then, of course, we got the midpoint, and we've got Burnt Store, that comes in. But that's basically it. So you don't have all these arteries coming in and going out, and you don't have space that the city keeps growing out. Our city grew in, and now it's growing up. And so that whole urban, if you will, sprawl is so different for us that I think many people that move into our area don't realize how different we are when they come here. And so from an affordability standpoint, yes, we were really affordable, especially in 2011, right toward the tail end of, if you will, the crash that most all of us know about, that we've certainly grown from. And then that explosion that happened because of the pandemic and then Hurricane Ian, that it drew so many people to us so quickly. There wasn't that ability to just grow out kind of real easy and move our infrastructure out. So I think that's the challenge. Part of the challenge, as we move forward, based on the question, is meeting that challenge of the kind of the growth inward and upward, and the challenges that presents to us. So certainly the expansion of the bridges, adding lanes to the bridges, allows people to come and go a little easier, and affordability. It's a supply and demand. All of you take economics somehow, some way, and so the more supply we have, then that helps ease, some of that upward pressure on pricing. If the demand is great, which we all know that it is, it's going to drive the prices higher until we have more of the homes available, and that's coming. We certainly had some anomalies here with the pressures of the pandemic and Ian on that. But the future looks good as it relates to that. So to encourage numbers of dwellings for people in a way where the infrastructure can support that helps with that pricing. It helps bring the prices down where it becomes more affordable. Certainly getting wages up helps that as well. So wages up, more supply so prices can come down. That's a way that we can help with that urban growth, if you will.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, from the story that the speaker mentioned about her family moving here, I think what your experience was a lot of our experience. We moved to a large city with a small town feel. And nobody wants to lose that. And we see the rapid growth, and I think the best way to protect what we all love about Cape Coral is to not combat the growth and not fight it, to be a part of it. So I think that implementing more community events and things that we all do together and being more involved in the growth, I think will have a big impact and help us move forward.
Okay, any comments from Youth Council? All right, let's move on to the next topic of discussion. We have culture and social events. And in the interest of time, I see you have 6 questions.
Mayor, can I make a suggestion on this topic?
Sure.
So we don't need to take a break and we can get all you home. And can we take the first 2 questions and combine 3 and 4, and then any council members that want to answer the last 2 can send responses to Ms. Grigland to get to you, so we can keep it at 3 questions?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Councilmember Hayden. I was going to give the chair the opportunity to pick the 3 questions.
Yeah.
And so I'll turn it over to you and let you make a decision on those 3 questions.
All right, well, took the words right out of my mouth. I quite literally have it written down here. To combine questions 1, 3, and 4. If you could take a look at your papers, they both, all 3 of them kind of have a youthful idea to them, youthful topic to them regarding the city. I'm open to any suggestions from both City Council and our Youth Council to any other questions that we may want to combine or eliminate. But I'm in favor of combining those 3 together with the main idea of how can the city, how can the city make events more youthful, and how do you think your current projects are making it promote more youthful participation, I think is the main idea of those. So open to combining or eliminating questions?
I was going to say yes, 1, 3, and 4, and then also question 5, would you support the city's creation of more concert-friendly sites? I think the main idea across those 4 questions, honestly, is what is the way to get more events, more, as you said, that are attracting more youth, and I think that's the main idea across even 4 of them. So I think we can do those 4, and I think it's important to address, how does the city modify public events to accommodate multiple cultures? I think that's its own question, and then question 2 I think we mentioned that's our own question. So honestly, 1, 3, 4, and then 5 could honestly be combined. That's just my opinion.
Councilmember Hayden?
Yeah, and I think with those questions, I think this is another one where I certainly don't want to, I don't think anybody up here wants to speak for you all. So what do you see as a way to attract more youth to events? What do you see that might be beneficial for this community rather than asking us? What would you like to see come into possibly J.C. Park or the other parks that you think would attract more people from your age group to these parks and make it more of a destination for teenagers, for students?
Yeah, I agree. I think these questions really should be answered by them instead of us answering for you.
I think it's our turn to listen.
Yes,
okay?
I agree. I think we should be listening here and hearing what you feel that we need to be doing. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have Youth Council, is to get your perspective, to hear what you want, what type of programs that we may be able to implement. We have a lot of parks, as Councilmember Cousin, I believe, had mentioned, that are coming on board. You have Festival Park, you have a possible band shell at J.C. Park if that project becomes to fruition. So I think we're all here eager to hear your recommendation. Good, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I think the best way to involve our youth is to go right at the source in our schools. I know that we do that many times with our youth council. We go directly to the schools. There's no use in getting a middleman involved. And having our city council maybe have more of an influence, not influence, but be more known to our students, especially at the high school level. Many of my friends that are not on the youth council, they don't really know how local government works. So I think the first step in making sure that, not making sure, but having the youth participate in our city events is to show them what city council is, who you are, what you do for our city, because a lot of it is behind the scenes. I know that if I wasn't vice chair of this council, that I wasn't involved in the local government and things like that and its events, I would think that our city council is untouchable, that they're intimidating, that they have these positions, they rule over the city, for lack of better words. But that's not true. You're there to represent the people. You're there to solve the issues that our city is facing. And I think that many people my age they don't know that. So I think as a city council, if you were to get involved in our schools, and I'm not sure how much you can do with that. I know that the charter schools, I'm sure you're able to. Is that a stretch? Yes. So, but with our Lee County schools that also reside in Cape Coral, there are 6 of them. I think that just getting your name out there, making sure that people that of my age group, 9 through 12 especially, know what you do. They're not so much intimidated to maybe go out to those city events, that it doesn't seem so untouchable anymore. I think that would be a great first step to get them to go to these events. Sorry for such a long rant.
Just to follow up to that, does the youth council as a collective body, do you, I know that you have representatives from several different schools, throughout Cape Coral, but do you ever have an event as a collective body that you go to a particular school and maybe have these types of discussions on what's important, to the youth in our city? Whether it's any type of initiatives that you may want to bring forward or support. Do you do any of that sort of thing?
So, as of right now, I believe that we don't have a specific event where we go and we talk to our peers about it. However, we do reach out on a normal basis about what the youth council is about. I'm trying to think about I just recently reached out to Island Coast and Ida Baker about, I'm trying to remember the email that I wrote. The application awards, thank you. So we do have our youth council awards. The application window just recently ended. So that was it's not an event per se, but it's more of like spreading our name and what we do to the city. But I think that what you brought up, that's something that we should bring up to our meeting on Friday, which as a youth council, we all invite you to go to. Something that I will definitely bring up in our reports to our chair, Ms. Arevalo, that maybe we should have a collective initiative where we go physically in person and we discuss what we are about, but also represent what you are about. So, yeah.
And I think it will help get the information that you may need to bring back to us on what the youth is looking for in our city. And that dialogue that you will have with your peers, I think, is important. Just like many of us do, we go out in the community, we speak at many community events, we talk to our constituents. I think that that's something that you may want to consider doing yourself with your peers, just to gather more information, introduce yourself, and then hear what they're looking for. And I think that can only be an asset if you have that type of a program. Maybe once a month or every other month you go to a particular school and you try to have a function, after hours. I know you may have to reach out to the school board I was talking to Mr. Fisher today, who's the chair of the school board. So I know we can at least get you in contact with the right people to make sure if that's a desire of your body in order to do that. I'm sure we can help facilitate that. Councilmember Steinke?
Thank you. I just wanted to put myself out there that given whatever authorizations or approvals are required, I'd be more than happy to come and spend a day on campus. If there was some way to facilitate that, whether it's speaking in front of a group or whether it's making myself available to be approached by, given that it's allowed, I'll volunteer right now.
Go ahead.
Thank you, and I just really wanted to expand on the Youth Council Awards program. We're giving out 5 awards this year. We're going to do it, hopefully if this round is successful. We're giving out awards in leadership, civic engagement, academic, athletics, and arts. And so we're really recognizing 5 different people that are residents of Cape Coral they can go to any school, but they have to be residents of the Cape. But we're recognizing 5 different people, and I think that is a major first step in kind of accomplishing some of the things with our strategic plan. It's getting youth to know the name of the youth council, because right now we're only 14 members per ordinance, but we would love to still work with local student governments, local student councils, key clubs, other student advisory committees, for example, the one down at the district. And so I think that our efforts so far, we've been very successful in trying to extend the hand of the Youth Council and trying to get all youth from all different backgrounds involved in our strategic plan, because if it's just us 14 kids dedicated to the strategic plan, then it's not going to go anywhere. We need a collective effort, and I think so far we're making strides in getting that collective.
Councilmember Law?
Yeah, I was just going to say something similar to what Councilmember Steinke said, and I would agree. I think that's a good idea, is to kind of get a collective and have you guys reach out to the community, to the schools, and your peers. But I also will say, not in defense, but I also would be welcome to an invitation that you guys would have. I think I had spoken previously with somebody on your board about a speaking engagement at a student government. I don't know whether that was with Mr. Wydish or not. I know he, to his credit, had invited me once before to another event that I believe was at his school that I wasn't able to attend. But up here, it's something along the lines of we don't know what we don't know. So the same way that you feel that we're sort of unapproachable, we don't know where to start as far as getting involved with you all. So we would welcome those invitations and any sort of mechanism that you think would be useful to have us continue that outreach to yourselves and your peers. So thank you.
Councilmember Carr.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to the list of questions, and I'm really curious, mainly because of the extreme interest in J.C. Park, and the question related to will it promote youth participation in the community? I'm curious what your opinion is. You referenced the band shell, for example. I'd like to just kind of hear the youth's opinion on that park.
I think it'll promote participation in the youth if the youth is incorporated, because there's going to be a concert little thing going on there. So I think, yeah, of course, sometimes host like local musicians, but I think we should host a little battle of the bands as well to showcase the school's talents, or host a talent show of the local schools, and perhaps may have a competition between schools or even independent. But I think that will be the biggest way to truly incorporate our youth into them being interested in the development of JC Park and having them participate in more events at the JC Park.
Thank you. So I am in agreement with Member Roman. I definitely think that with the renovation of JC Park, it'll definitely have more youthful participation. I know I am a member of JRTC. We do a battalion barbecue every year, and last year it was at JC Park, and the biggest appeal to JC Park was, yes, that it was waterfront. However, I think that with the renovation of JC Park and having the band shell, that it'll definitely bring in a lot of youthful participation, because the youth, from what I gather, is that it's constantly looking for something new in the city, something new to do, right? Because we have Jim Jeffers, that's been around for a while. We just recently had our battalion barbecue over there. And the biggest part of that was that there's playgrounds, there's sports areas, and then there's just open field. But that's something that I think that the youth really, really wants to see in the city, and what will really get them to participate is seeing something new that hasn't happened before, or something that's rare. Like I know the Lee County Fair only happens once a year, so they get a lot of people going over there. That gets a lot of youth participation as well, because it only happens once a year. But with something like JC Park, like I said before, it's new, it's innovative, and I think that it's going to get a lot of people interested and excited, and you're going to get a lot of traffic the first few days that it gets opened from the youth.
I would just like to give my, personal stance on, the JC Park renovation project. I know that it's been a very fiery issue before City Council. I am absolutely in support of the renovation. We received presentation from city staff at one of our city council meetings about the renovation, about how it's going to add 250 more trees. It's going to remove the invasive Australian pines. It's going to add more parking. And I know that there's widespread concerns from citizens and from your constituents, but I think, just my personal opinion, that is something that the youth of Cape Coral have been looking for so long, is something like that project. The bistro, the band shell, more trees, more waterfront access. I think even, I don't know if it was a full marina, boat access was proposed. I mean, I've never, when I first heard of the plan, it blew my mind, because, in Cape Coral, as youth, we're always looking for something new to do. And I think those residents that are against it, they've lived there for so long, but, like we've been saying this entire meeting, Cape Coral is going to expand, and new generations are going to be here, and new generations need things like that and opportunities like that in our city. So I think that it is possibly one of the best things I've ever seen proposed before in the city. And I've only, I've been in Cape Coral, only a handful of years, and I think that it's perhaps one of the most important things that the city could do for youth. So definitely that project needs to be moved forward.
Council members, thank you.
Silly question. We all played beach volleyball. When I was your age and I was in school, that is what we did, man. We went to the beach and we played beach volleyball. So that's part of the plan of JC Park, and so that's a guess that that's something that youth would make it more youthful, if you will, with something that can be done there that we really don't have set up anywhere else. Do you think that's a good amenity at the park? Okay. All right, expect to see you out there playing. Okay, all right.
Any other discussion?
I just want to thank them for their opinions, and that's exactly what I meant by coming to council meetings and voicing them.
Is your mic on?
Oh, excuse me. Is it? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I just want to say thank you for that response. And I know you monitor what we hear at our meetings a lot, so you know the contentious nature of that topic, and your opinions matter, whether you're sitting on youth council or you're just a student in the high schools that you attend. So, and for us to hear varying opinions is what we need to make better informed decisions. So thank you for that example.
Okay. Have we addressed everything under that topic, Madam Chair? Oh, we have a hand.
Mia Mazurkowitz, sorry. Our advisor very loudly stated behind me to
I saw him kicking your chair, but I wasn't going to say anything.
to talk about some events that take the youth out of Cape Coral, bring us to other places like Fort Myers and all of that, and how we could bring that into Cape Coral. I know for me, I'll drive an hour to Naples to go to Fifth Avenue. I love the shopping experience there and all of that. For me, I like that. I know they have Headpins, which I've definitely gone to a couple times. Dave and Buster's, all of those big gaming areas I drive to. I'll drive 30 minutes with my friends and we'll go out to eat. So that's just some of the stuff that I do if anyone else wants to add on.
I think we need a bookstore in Cape Coral. We have to drive all the way to Fort Myers.
What kind of?
Bookstore. Mm-hmm. Yes. Just something that sells like a wide variety of books, because we have secondhand shops and we have thrift stores, but we don't have like a chain bookstore that sells everything. We have to go to Fort Myers to get textbooks. We have to go to Fort Myers to get books that we read, recreationally. It's a long drive every month or two for new books, and I think we need a bookstore closer.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. One major thing is, of course, the beach, but not much can be done about that. But also athletics, like athletic tournaments. Nothing much is hosted here in the Cape, especially for like high school sports. I know, even though my school is in Fort Myers, I know ECS hosts basketball tournaments all the time. Football has to go out to Naples to do 7v7. So that's a major thing that takes the youth away from Cape, and I think we should try hosting some sort of athletic tournaments more often here.
I totally agree with every point that was made over there. Starting off with Ms. Mazurkowitz's point, one of the most popular areas in Cape, in my opinion, is the Coralwood Center. That's, if you don't know, that's a center that has Home Goods, Ulta, Bell's Outlet. It has a gym. It just opened up a Burlington. It has a bunch of other little shops, and it has Marquee Cinemas. Marquee Cinemas is super popular in our city with the youth. So when she mentions going out to Fifth Avenue, and she mentions bell tower shops and stuff like that, yeah, we really want more areas where you can shop, but where you can also get entertainment. With the bookstore comment, you would be I saw your faces, you had like this look of shock on your face. Yeah, there's so many people in our generation that do still read paper books, and it's not all just on Kindle or ebooks. There's a lot of people that read at my age. I know Skylar, Miss Muncie reads a lot. I know I read a lot. Everyone here reads a lot. Like it's not something that's totally prehistoric or outdated. Like we really do enjoy it. So when I have to go down 41, which I hate, to go to Barnes & Noble, it really is a trek. So seeing a bookstore here would definitely be wonderful. And with the comment about the athletics, tying into Councilmember Steinke's comment about beach volleyball, I'm sure the youth here is also really itching for something that's exciting and outdoors, because we're kind of sick of being like locked in our houses so much, glued to our phone. I know I am. Especially I went to Sanibel with a couple friends, and that really like kick-started my want to like be outside more. I want to be outside. I want to be athletic. I want to do physical activity that isn't just laying in bed, being a couch potato, watching YouTube, watching Instagram, TikToks, whatever. Our youth really wants something that gets us out and gets us moving, especially after COVID-19, where we're stuck in our houses. So, yeah.
Well, I thought it was pretty ironic that Mr. Mazurkowitz was coaching her daughter to mention what she would like to see here in Cape Coral. And the first thing that she mentioned was shopping experience. So, Mr. Mazurkowitz, you better be careful what you wish for, because I think she probably has your credit card. But as we know, we have a town center that project up off of Pine Island Road that hopefully will become a viable project here in the near future, and we'll be able to have some of those experiences. I think all of us here hear from many of our constituents different type of businesses that we, whether it's a Costco or shoe stores or men's clothing, or we could just go on and on. How many different types of businesses. And I think we all have the same desire of our community. We don't want to have to go across the bridge. Unfortunately, we find ourselves doing that more times than we probably want to. But our city is only 50%, 55% built out. So we are moving in that direction. We may not see that in our time here for sure, but I think you will. If you stay here and be a permanent resident of Cape Coral, I think you'll see towards the end of build out, you won't have to travel across that bridge, hopefully. I have Councilmember Shepherd's light on.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, with hearing a lot of your thoughts tonight are very encouraging, and you're educating the council on what you guys want for the city. I want you to know that it would be great for you to just randomly come to a council meeting and go to the podium. It doesn't have to be a topic that's at that particular agenda for that meeting, because when you voice what you just told us at that podium, you're educating the citizens watching at home as well. So if there are goals that you want to happen for the city, changes you want to see, then bring them forward to the podium and let your voice be heard by everyone in the city that pays attention and watches. Doesn't have to be a particular particular item on the agenda or anything. Just what you talked about tonight, things you want to happen, things you want to happen in the city, changes you would like to see, and just bring them forward. It would be really refreshing. Thank you.
Council members, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I just had a question. If just take the Barnes & Noble, for example, and you say, hey, that's something that we would really like. Governmentally, do you know where you would take that request? So the city has an economic development department, and every day, we hope, as people look to come to our city, bring their businesses to our city, bring new employees to our city, bring new resources to our city, they go to our economic development department and they talk about, hey, we're thinking about bringing in this business, that business, whatever. So anytime you have that as a youth council, or as your peers are saying, man, I wish we had a fill in the blank, our economic development department, Sharon Woodbury is the director. Sharon would be the person that you could send an email to and said, hey, we've got a great number of our peers that are really looking for a Barnes & Noble as you're talking to the developers that are coming in, whether it's Bimini Basin Project, Code 47th, the Grove out on Pine Island Road. As they're looking to fill those spaces, we can say, that's your voice being heard, hey, here's the demand for this kind of business or this type of an activity. So you can participate that way by sharing the wishes of the people, because age isn't a factor. It's all the people. So as youth, feel free to contact our economic development department, Sharon Woodbury and her team, and say, hey, when you're talking to these people, we really could use a fill in the blank. And she can then honestly say, hey, we're getting requests for whatever. Just a resource for you.
Councilmember Hayden.
Yeah, that's important because, believe it or not, about 15 years or so ago, Barnes & Noble did look at our area and they didn't feel like it was a conducive environment for a bookstore. So your voices, your young voices, might be critical for them to possibly reconsider and look at Cape Coral again or some other bookstore. So thanks.
All right, I don't see any other lights on. I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for participating tonight. I know I got a lot out of this discussion. And I think moving forward, I would definitely entertain doing this type of a joint meeting more so than we have done in the past. So I wanted to thank each and everyone for you coming, your comments tonight. We look forward to working with you. I think I can speak on all of my colleagues if there's anything that we can do to help you. If you want to go out and do those meetings in the community, if you need me to try to help facilitate that with the school district, I'd be more than happy to do that, be happy to attend. So, we're here for you. So anything that we can do to help you, we're going to want to do that to make sure we get the information that we need to make good informed decisions in the future. So thank you very much. Time and place of future meeting. We have a regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council scheduled for Wednesday, March 6, 2024, beginning at...
I just wanted to thank you all too on behalf of administration and staff, and also just perform a little sales pitch for our 311 app. We do have a phone app where you can request data and report problems or issues that you see. You can go to report, and then there's a whole list of different things. So if you see trash on the road, a pothole, a sign down, or you want to know about a special event, we're very open with that, and we've been trying to push that out. So if when you're out and about, if you want to use the app or look it up, we do have a 311 app as well. So, but thank you for everything.
Okay, time and place, future meeting. We have a regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council scheduled for Wednesday, March 6, 2024, beginning at 4:30 here in council chambers. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.